Hello. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the Twitch. Welcome to YouTube. Um, Alright, I'm just getting my stuff ready. I might watch something, as opposed to listen to something. Watching these guys, very interesting.
Blanche. Cat is awesome.
Yeah, oh, guys, there's such good cat acting in this. Really good, top-notch actor cat.
In fact, we're not going to be able to put too many clips in here because they're in
The movie's in Japanese,
so
obviously.
listeners won't understand, but there is a wonderful song featuring cat meows, which you'll hear now. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
So, that's what you have to look forward to. The seven dwarves go to the aunt's house, and I got a real seven dwarves feel here because they start cleaning her.
Okay, I think I'm good to go.
Yeah, I was trying to think how, because, yeah, they all have very Seven Dwarfs-ish kind of names.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was trying to piece together how that all fits, because there are a lot of weird fairy tale story tropes going on in this.
I mean, it's a witch.
Yeah,
the aunt's a witch, and she ends up eating them.
And you have the stepmother that the main girl hates, you know, and feels betrayed by her dad.
Oh, fuck, I went too far.
Stuff. So the big studios are one of the most colorful movies you'll ever see. The use of color in it is just, I was gonna say bananas, like that guy. Do we want to go through kind of where Japan's at this point?
Sure.
Do you
This
want
is
to talk
gonna be
more
you.
about the movie?
This is gonna be you learning me because you're the one who did all the research.
I did.
I just sat there and edited my stupid little kill count videos while you were learning about cool stuff.
It actually really brought back, I was relearning stuff because as I was taking notes, I realized, oh my god, I learned so much of this in our contemporary cinema class. I don't know if you took that one at Michigan. Like, it was a history class.
I took a bunch of the history.
But I was remembering, oh yeah, I learned that in this class and just forgot all of it until now. Cool. The 1970s in Japan, just like pretty much everywhere else we see this in America, and we talked about it a lot in our gimmicks episode, in the 70s, cinema attendance just tanks because of TV. Yeah. And so, you know, people have TV in their homes, and as a result, and this is why we get really fucked up horror movies in the 70s, same thing in Japan, we start to see increased violent and sexual content in films. One of the big production companies trying to drive people to the theaters in Japan is Toho, we mentioned earlier, and this is a studio probably most famous for their baby,
Obviously, that's how I know them.
Godzilla. And I think they, if you've watched any Miyazaki movies, I think they show like their logo on those.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, I mean they're huge. They're an equivalent of like Fox or Universal, or so they're big. You know, they, besides Godzilla, they do a ton of other stuff. So the big studios are looking at what movies are making money in America around this time, and since American cinema is having the exact same issues that Japan's having with revenue loss, again, because just TV has taken over the world. If you've been listening to the podcast and paying attention, you can probably guess what film Toho decided they needed to emulate to succeed.
It's Jaws.
It's Jaws. So Toho decides, all right, we need to make a movie that's like Jaws. And not necessarily a movie that's plot-wise like Jaws or style-wise. Specifically, it's more like the formula of an amateur auteur making a huge budget movie, because Jaws was like a huge budget. They gave it so much money. That's why it's the first blockbuster.
20. Oh, man.
That's why it's the first movie like movies we make now, where it's these super expensive, you know, big blockbuster movies, but they also in turn make a ton of money. So that's how this trend gets started. But yeah, so that's what they see that formula. So it's like an unknown making this huge budget movie that's broadly entertaining. Like it can entertain a very broad audience. Like Jaws is pretty broad. It's not too horror, so that it's like critically recognized, you know, and it's not too violent. So it's like you have a large span of people that are coming to the theaters to see it. And again, that's why it makes so much money. Toho approaches commercial director Nobuhiko Obayashi.
Yeah, it's funny when you watch that Criterion trailer for this. It says, from acclaimed TV ad director.
Oh yeah, and he was huge. And again, just a reminder, if you haven't watched the trailer, go do that now, and then come back and remember, Toto's trying to make a movie. It's like Jaws.
Yeah, right.
They
What
want their
the fuck?
Jaws.
Where did things go wrong?
I love it. I love it so much. The story of this movie is great. I'm glad we're spending so much time with like how it got made versus what the actual movie is, because you should just go watch it.
Yeah, and also it's just a fucking fever dream. There's no point for us to go through how the watermelon turns into a decapitated head that bites a girl on a butt.
Yeah.
Her butt, not a butt.
Yeah. So Obayashi he came from an amateur art background, and he'd screen his films in event halls and art spaces. So think like, I don't know, I always think of the Andy Warhol factory people where they're all just hanging out and watching movies they're projecting on walls and being really cool.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine him doing growing up. So in his interview on the Criterion DVD, it's not DVD. I still say DVD.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I'm sure they have a DVD.
Yeah, the people in his kind of sphere, his social sphere, they all turn their noses up at commercial directing, but he jumped right in when he's offered the chance because commercials right now are huge because, again, TV. So all the money that was being put into movies is just being moved into commercials because that's what people are inevitably watching on TV.
Like the I'm a Pepper commercials with David Naughton.
Were those really expensive to make?
Probably not, but they were great.
Yeah.
They're really good. I don't know. They had big song and dance numbers. Maybe they
Like,
cost
yeah,
money.
I'd like to give the little coat.
There you go.
Okay, I'm just going to say right now that there was a jump cut in this podcast because we said a Mad Men spoiler, and one of our best friends is watching it, and we know she listens to this podcast every week
Well, sorry,
on her
guys.
drive to
Or I
work.
guess not sorry. 'cause
So we
edited it
edited out the spoiler for you, Liz. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so there's no budgets in film at this time, and so he's just happy to be given the chance to direct something with money. He's like, whatever, I can still kind of express myself through a commercial. Even though it's a commercial, the chance to film something beautiful with a bunch of money is amazing. You know, that's like the dream to do. So he has no issue with it. And he'd also already found some success with his short film Emotion, which was big at universities and kind of in the art film circuit. I think it's still like if you're taking Japanese cinema, that's a short film you would maybe expect to see in class, or that maybe would come up in your repertoire, your syllabus. So Toho's like, okay, please give us the idea for this movie. They're not saying like we want you to direct this.
Do they give him anything, or they're just like make us a
Make us
movie?
Jaws.
Make us Jaws.
Make us Jaws go.
Here's house.
And they're like, you're gonna be our Spielberg. Give us this movie. And again, they don't want
No pressure.
No pressure. They're like, they don't want him to direct. They just want him to give them a script.
Oh.
Yeah. So he's not attached to direct yet.
But they want an auteur to.
I'm not sure. And also the thing is like he isn't a Toho director. They're like big studio where
She
they have a
just
stable of
yeah,
directors,
okay.
and he's not.
Sure.
And that was a big part of the reason. They're like, we can't have you direct because you're not one of our guys, but we want this idea to come from you because you're this like you get this artist who also
Bullshit.
understands.
Yeah, you're a creative
Commercial
guy.
success.
Give
Go
us
do
give us
this.
something creative and money.
So Obayashi turns to his 11-year-old daughter, and he explains, and I love this a lot because I totally get what he's saying, is that adults aren't going to be able to think outside the box. And he's so right, because he says, if you go to a studio and they're like, okay, successful shark movie, what can we do? Oh, I've got it, a successful bear attack movie.
Or
and we'll make
piranha.
that. Exactly.
Sorry, Joe.
But you see what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, okay, this formula, like copy, paste, change a few things, done. That's such an adult way of thinking, whereas a kid's way of thinking is just on another level that we, like as adults, just don't get, we grow out of. So he asked his daughter to pitch him ideas for this movie, and she comes up with all these ideas of things that are scary to her that she kind of pulls from real life. And she's on the Criterion interview too.
Oh.
So she's like, oh, Dad, it'd be cool if, and she comes up with the ideas for the mirror, if your reflection attacks you, that's kind of scary. The futons attacking the girl. Remember when I think it's Sweet is looking for the bedding, and she gets attacked by all the feather mattresses
Yeah.
because she would go and stay. I think they slept on futons at their house, and she would imagine them like eating her. And the girl in the clock, because
yeah.
there was a
Sweet again, right?
yeah, there was a big clock at her
That was
in her grandfather's house that
crazy.
she was really afraid of because it was really big and loud. And same with the watermelon head in the well, because when she was at her grandfather's house, that's how he stored a water. He was like, oh, we'll keep it cool. We'll like tie a rope on
So
it
crazy.
and throw it in this well. And also the piano,
Nice.
the fingers in the piano, because she was taking piano lessons at the time apparently, and it was really stressful. And I guess during one lesson, her fingers got caught between the keys, and so from then on, it became a thing where she was so afraid to play the piano, and she felt like she was going to get her fingers like bitten off by
Oh,
it or something.
no.
So she came up with that. So he's like, all right, cool. And he takes all of her crazy ideas, and he adds the character of the aunt and her backstory. And the aunt is the one who owns the cat,
Mhm.
Blanche. The aunt is such a fun character. I love her so much. I love her performance. Like, she's just really fun to
I think my
watch.
favorite moment is when she's eating the watermelon and she like, and Fantasy is the
Oh,
only one
her
who's
eye.
seen that shit's weird at that point, and she like,
In her
like shows Fantasy the eyeball in her mouth.
It's so
creepy.
that's such a
Crazy.
creepy moment. The aunt's story in this, just to summarize briefly, she was engaged right before World War II to a guy who he got drafted before they ever got married, and he died during the war.
Mhm.
And so she has been waiting for him all these years because he promised he would come back, and so she's just been in this house waiting for him to come back. And there's a brief shot of like the atomic bomb going off in the movie where like they're explaining the aunt's backstory, and there's a few really quick shots of the atomic bomb, and that's it. Weirdly, just there's that really quick mention of it, but apparently that's a ton of the subtext of this movie is the bomb, because Obayashi grew up in Hiroshima. He's from there, and apparently like all of his childhood friends died in Hiroshima.
Jesus.
So his subtext that he puts in this movie, and his more kind of substantial, like a grown-up plot that he puts in here, is that the aunt is a character who resents these girls who show up to her house because they're all young and they didn't live through the war and they haven't had anything taken from them, and they all just take it for granted. So like they show up and she just super resents them because she has had her love taken away. So it's this woman who just like has become a monster who feeds off of them because it's just such jealousy and envy. And I guarantee that that's something like someone like him feels towards younger people. I'm sure that that's a big generational divide. Again, I don't know much about Japanese culture, but I'm not surprised at all that this is present in a film made by someone this age and at this time. And even before we watched this movie together, I was like, oh, I'm going to want to research this movie because I bet, it was made 1977. That's the kids of World War II.
I didn't realize how loud it
So, like,
was.
surely there's going to be something about that in here, and there is. I'm not surprised there wasn't, but his interview about it was really interesting. And that's again why the movie is kind of told from the perspective of a kid, with like all of his daughter's weird ideas, and the special effects are super weird, really
Yeah.
fake looking. Is he wanted them to be effects that a kid would usually do in camera, and they look kind of shitty, and
like stuff
yeah.
that's keyed out. There's like a lot of like outlines around the effects of like the blue. Even aside from just the special effects, just some of the backdrops and the backgrounds that are very obviously giant matte paintings.
Yeah,
or like
they
they're,
look
they're,
fake.
They're backgrounds that don't even cover the whole frame. I'm thinking when they get off the bus when they're first going there, they're like standing in front of just like a partial
Oh
background.
yeah, I mean I think that's like a
Is that like a-
visual joke. I think
Yeah,
where
it's a bus stop.
Yeah.
But still, it kind of fucks with you. Yeah.
like their sense of reality is so weird. Looking at this really fucked up world through the eyes of a kid, which is what he experienced growing up, is like living through a really fucked up time and watching that happen as a kid. So I think when you start to really dig into that, like this movie's super weird and at times it does just feel like a bunch of random shit happening. But I think once you listen to what he has to say about it and you start really going through the movie scene by scene, you realize there's thought put into this. And it is also, I don't mean to make it sound like this is a secretly a really serious movie because
No,
it's not. It's really fun and funny. And he even said making it was super fun and like was super chill, So, but there is again, it's that subtext has to be there for it to be a movie, instead of just stuff.
Yeah.
So he pitches this idea to screenwriter Chiho Katsura, and Katsura writes up the script, and they're thinking, this is never going to get made because they know it's super weird. Like, they know writing this that it's a crazy movie. And they even call it House, which is an English word, which you don't do in...
Oh, it's just straight up called House. That's not like a translated title?
Just House.
All right.
Yeah, so they're like, fuck it, we'll just name it this and we'll go the extra step of just, like, making it this thing that can't ever be made. I think they were like, whatever, we'll see what happens. They submit it, and they're expecting months of deliberation before hearing we're not making it. It gets greenlit in 3 hours.
What the fuck?
Even he does not know how that happened, but apparently they read it and are like, wow, this is genius, you're a young genius, it's incredible, we're making it.
Oh, he must have sent it to them during their corporate retreat where they all took those drugs.
Yeah.
Just gotten lucky with that.
Yeah, no kidding.
This is
It
genius.
was perfect. It's just like Jaws. So none of the directors at Toho want to do it because they all read it and they're like,
They were sober.
This is crazy, we're not doing this. And again, it's like a studio thing, so if none of the directors there want to do it, it's kind of fucked. Like, it's just in development limbo because they can't just bring in a random dude to do it. Studios. Obayashi is still like, he's leaping at the chance. He wants to do it, and they keep saying no. So he goes ahead and designs a poster for the movie, which everyone hates, but it actually is awesome. It's not the one with the cat. It's the one that, if you watch the movie, I think the end credits are like playing over it. It's like the house with the big tongue coming out of it.
Okay.
So he designs that poster and puts it on cards and stuff, like business cards, and he just starts promoting the shit out of this movie that doesn't exist with his name attached. And he was like, well, can I tell people that Toho is going to make this eventually? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. So then, which is like such a dumb thing to tell him because he's like, great. So he starts pushing it with his name attached. And so House, because of all this weird underground buzz, before the movie's ever made, House is made into a novel, a manga, a soundtrack, and a radio drama that was super popular.
Are they similar to the plot of the movie?
Uh-huh.
Oh. How? Were they based on the script? Or?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The movie
How
has...
do you make a radio drama out of this movie that's like so just visual? I can't imagine.
No, I would listen to it, but it's in Japanese, so...
Oh yeah, they'll do it.
Yeah, but yeah, this movie had the soundtrack before it
What
existed.
fucking sound? That's my biggest complaint about this movie.
Okay, well, we're gonna talk about the composers, though.
Okay.
Hold on.
I'm waiting to hear because it's just the same fucking theme over and over and over and over again, except for when Kung Fu is kicking ass. She gets her own little, like,
Her thing.
crime fighting theme. It's the only thing I hated. It was so
Oh,
repetitive. It was
interesting.
so repetitive.
Okay, so Toho finally, I think this is 2 years later, they give in because of all this hype, because people want this movie so bad, and they let Obayashi direct. He goes to bring on a composer, Issei Kobayashi. I'm probably pronouncing that first name wrong. So he gets involved, and this would also be his first big thing that he's composing. Did you read ahead?
I did.
It's so fucking funny.
That's a composer, that
Yes,
guy?
yeah,
All right.
okay, so he's like, all right, this is gonna be my first big feature I'm composing, so he's taking it super seriously, as he would, and he's reading the script, and it makes sense to me that if you're a composer and you read a script, you have your own movie in your head, because everyone's interpretation of a script is different, so his interpretation is, oh, this is like a serious movie, and I'm gonna score it like a serious movie, and he is so not on board with anything but, like, we're making this serious soundtrack for this film, and Obayashi's like, well, horror movies all tend to have, they have really good serious soundtracks that take themselves seriously, sure, go, like, make your serious music for this movie. The composer did not want this to be a silly film, but he eventually plays the watermelon guy.
Who's very silly.
Which, he's one of the weirdest fucking parts of this movie if you've seen it. They, like, when they show up to the aunt's house, there's this guy at a watermelon stand.
I guess he plays that, like, harbinger archetype.
Yes.
He's like, oh, there's the house, but things are gonna get bad for you.
He is the Japanese equivalent of the people in Texas Chainsaw Massacre they meet at the gas station.
Yeah, or the cabin in the woods has,
Yes.
has that guy.
He's this guy, and he's a living cartoon character.
He's the one who turns into a skeleton?
He turns into a skeleton, animated skeleton, yeah. And then the other guy gets so scared he turns into banana.
But this is a very serious movie.
Very serious picture. All the other actresses in this were amateur actresses, except two, Gorgeous and the aunt. They were like already working actors, but all the other girls were they were models that Obayashi knew from doing commercials. So while he was working on commercials, he was kind of secretly testing this thing in his head. So he reached out to them.
It did, yeah, because it was over the course of 2 years.
Yeah, he talks about he's like 2 years of pre-pro is insane, and I
Yeah.
used every second of it. You never ever are given that much time to pre-produce anything. That's so unheard of. So he used that time to his advantage. The aunt was a legit actress, like Yoko Minamida. She was like an established person and really good friend of Obayashi's, and so this movie's a big deal for her because Obayashi says this is his criterion thing. He says once an actress plays a mother, she'll never play a young woman again, which I think we're getting better about, but that's kind of true. And especially, he says, especially in Japan around that time. So this is a big deal for her because of the stigma that if you're playing an older woman on camera, the audience is never going to be able to like deal with you playing younger ever again.
Yeah, I never thought about that, but yeah, this is true.
Yeah. And I think that's totally. I feel like that still rings true today.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you're on screen, like okay, I wonder if a good example is even Jennifer Lawrence. Like she's played so many roles where she's a grown ass lady, and I feel like it'd be so weird to watch her play a movie where she's in college.
Well, yeah. Well, how old is she?
She's my age. She's younger than me.
Okay.
I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's a bad example, but she always plays so much older than she is.
She does, yeah. Especially like, I mean, American Hustle was what?
That was,
4
like,
years
4
ago,
years
and she was
ago.
playing like a kind of an almost middle-aged person.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was weird.
Yeah, for sure. So she decides to do it. She decides to do this movie, and yeah, they were really good friends until her death, I think, a couple of years ago-ish. Yeah, but yeah, she said in general, this movie was just hanging out with buds. It was like a great time, apparently, which I found so refreshing, because often you read about like, all right, this movie was kick-ass, let's learn about how it was made, and everyone was like, this was the worst fucking time of my life. I was miserable and wanted to die the whole time on set. Evil Dead.
Oh God.
This movie's very comparable to Evil Dead, I think. Oh, why your face?
I'm just processing that.
I mean, the splatter. There's so much gore splatter and crazy like whiplash camera.
Yeah.
And Peter Jackson movies too. I
Oh,
feel
God.
like are in the same kind of. You get that. I mean, this is a bit more stylized than a Raimi movie. Raimi movies feel a lot dirtier. For Evil Dead, at least feels like more disgusting than this.
Mhm.
But you still get the weird. It just feels like anarchy, though.
Yeah.
That's like the vibe I get from all
Sure,
of
there
those
you go.
movies.
That anarchy is good.
Yeah, so compared to Evil Dead's like I guess miserable shooting
One of the
atmosphere, this
worst.
apparently was chill as fuck. Everyone had like a really good time, and I guess crew members were like, "This is why I love movies," because they've just been working on all this studio shit where it sucks, and all the crew really came to respect him one day when he unknowingly he referred to one of them by their name, and it like made this dude cry because the directors never referred to him by name on set. So I guess it just like it became like a very casual set that didn't have the feelings of like really stiff
Well, that's
studio.
fun.
Yeah, so I loved hearing that
Did
because
you hear anything about the girls? Were they taken care of?
I think one of the girls who had to get naked for a scene. I feel like that's part of the reason you're asking. It's like they're young and we see some nudity in this. I guess
Yeah.
that the actress who plays the aunt on a day where they were shooting where one of the younger actresses had to get naked also got naked with her and was
Really?
like, "You're an actress and you're bearing your soul and you can do it when you have clothes on, but if you have your clothes off, you're like truly acting and it's whatever." Although this one scene they filmed, it's from the end. I think it's Prof is like she gets dissolved in water when she falls in,
Yeah.
and that's like a really long nude scene that I remember. But she actually like slowly dissolves. I guess that was done by she was suspended in midair and had blue paint dumped all over her so they could chroma key it out.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just like, was that fun or was that terrible? I have no idea. It sounds like it'd be fun. But that was part of the like purposely fake effects and experimentation going on. A lot of shit he said they just came up with on set. Like, oh, it'd be cool if we did this. Oh, it'd be cool if when the mirror broke her reflection, we could use the little broken pieces to make mats and then make her face slowly, like piece by piece, catch on fire. Like they just came up with
Okay,
that.
yeah.
Like that would look cool. Yeah, okay. Just
Yeah.
anarchy. Anything goes. No storyboards made for this
Oh
film.
Lord.
I can't, guys. I can't imagine shooting without story. If I'm making a movie, not having storyboards,
Yeah.
this is the total opposite of a Hitchcock shoot.
Mhm.
Hitchcock, and apparently Clint Eastwood too is like Hitchcock style, reproduce the shit out of it.
Just every shot storyboarded exactly how they
I've
want.
heard working on a Clint Eastwood movie because he filmed. It was a fucking
Gran Torino.
Gran Torino, Michigan. I heard working on that was great
Oh,
because
cool.
he storyboards the shit out of everything. And if you're such a heavy pre-producer, people on set are like, great. Everyone knows what they're doing, you know.
Yeah, I tried to be that way in film school, but I'm an awful artist. I can't draw with shit. So like I had like 7 pages of storyboards, but they were all stick figures with horrible
That
perspectives
happens.
drawn in. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like this isn't helping.
I think that's actually exactly how Sam Raimi is, because I think he would storyboard each shot, but then you talk to the like the DPs and
And
the
they're like,
effects
"What
works, and they're like,
am I looking
Sam, those are stick figures.
Yeah.
That doesn't help me.
Yeah,
So I guess I'm just like Sam Raimi then,
sure. The crew working on this knows this movie's batshit
except the
crazy.
composer.
Except the composer, apparently.
I want to clarify that the theme is fine, but it's short and they play it over and over and
yeah,
over
that's
and over
fair.
again.
You hear it a bunch.
Yeah, like nonstop.
This movie is a commercial flop. It does so badly, but it's a cult hit, like immediately. I guess kids loved this movie because the daughter said when she was going to school, all the other kids were like, "Your dad made a really crazy movie," and they all loved
Like
it.
11-year-olds?
Yeah, and she was like the
Or
coolest
maybe
kid
they'd
in
be like
school.
early teens by the time it was made.
Exactly,
Yeah.
I think she'd be like 13, 14. But
Okay, I
oh
can
man,
see
this
that.
movie kicks ass.
Yeah.
So weird. Critics apparently had no idea how to review it.
Yeah, neither do
Well,
we.
yeah, we don't either. This episode, I don't even know. We barely talked about the actual movie because it's like, how do you
Just go fucking watch it.
talk about it? But yeah, so this kind of reception is the opposite of what the studio wants. They want a big commercial hit that is like popular right now in this moment, not a cult hit that's going to be put in the Criterion Collection 30 years later.
We want Jaws, not Eraserhead.
Exactly. Oh my god, that's actually a really good comparison. Some felt
Yeah.
this is the end of Japanese cinema. Honestly,
I didn't think about
oh
that.
man,
Eraserhead
that's
being
like
a
a movie
comparison.
where people are like, this is the end of American cinema.
Yeah,
God,
that'd be amazing.
that's the
You know what? I
fucking
think
dream.
Transformers came pretty close.
Yeah. Yep. Oh my gosh, he cited one review, quote, "This is not a film," unquote. He has like such a good sense of humor when he talks about this too.
That's great.
Because he is really proud of it. He's
Yeah.
proud of this movie. You can tell how much he loves this movie and is like, this is his baby. I was curious before I researched this if this was a case where the director is like, oh my god, I'm so sick of talking about this one thing I did that's super weird and everyone's obsessed with for some reason. But he's like, no, this movie's great and I'm happy with it. I'm proud of it. And he's proud of it because again, he made this movie that's like through the eyes of a child and is a very youthful point of view. It's a movie that young people liked.
I get it. Yeah. You
Yeah,
watch
for
it, it's like,
sure.
oh, this is what movies can be.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
so
what
much
you can do.
fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I said this, I think during our cam review, but it's one of those movies where it's like, guys, colors exist and they're
Yeah.
really cool to use and stuff. We're so afraid of color. More colors and things. Mandy's really good. Uses color a lot. Lots of colors in that. Director Ty West
Yeah.
is on the Criterion Blu-ray. He did You're Next.
No,
or
he's in Your Next.
Oh shit.
So he was literally just talked about in the
In
last
our- he
episode.
was in our last
one of
episode,
those
yeah.
kills that I had to guess.
So Ty West is on the Criterion Blu-ray, and he does like it's like a 3-minute long bit where he just talks about this movie, and he right away is like, this is one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. I don't know how to talk about, like, that's the thing is if you ask anyone who's seen it to talk about it, and you can't. It's just so much.
it's a lot.
That's
I don't
something I
know what
ran
to say.
into when I was Googling it, is articles about this were like, you just have to watch it because it's so weird. But yeah, so this is a horror director who says it's one of the weirdest things he's ever seen, if that's a big enough endorsement for you.
You can't just sit back and take it in. You're kind of on the edge of your seat looking at it because it's unlike anything you've seen before, and it makes you think, and it makes you like question, like, is it funny, is it scary, and you have to really come up with your own opinion on it because the movie's so extreme, it really forces you to do that. Whereas other lowest common denominator stuff, you know what it's supposed to be because it's only supposed to be one thing. And I think that's something this movie does very well.
I think that's something I value a lot of movies too, is not even like, are they a masterpiece? All right, fine, but like, are they doing stuff that I've never seen before? That's
Yeah.
like a thing I really value. Like, is it truly crazy? Am I having an experience watching it?
Definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
That's why we don't do like the scale ratings or letter grades
like
of
numbers,
movies,
like, out of
because you
10?
can't, like, how do you like letter grade this? I mean, obviously A+, but like, you know,
Yeah.
movies are more complicated than that.
just like a single
Yeah.
quantifiable rating.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite parts?
Oh God. Well, obviously the cat song is really, really good.
Yeah, let's hear that again. So good.
It's
So
really good. I mean, that whole sequence I think was my favorite because she's dancing. The aunt is dancing with the skeleton who is
He's
alive and
conducting
just.
the piano
There's a
playing.
skeleton that just is in this. I don't think we ever really figure out who it is.
No.
I think it's just because the grandpa who lived in that house was a doctor, and I think maybe that was just a I don't know. skeleton who stuck out in there. I don't know. But I love that whole thing. I love the part where she crawls into the fridge and disappears, and then
Yeah,
she reappears
in the
right in front of the
foreground.
camera and like breaks the fourth wall.
She
and
does break
smiles.
the
It's
fourth
so
wall twice, I
creepy.
think.
The whole bus ride to the aunt's house because it's so colorful, and it's like on this weird. They leave to go to the countryside, and it's just it feels almost Yellow Submarine. Like I can't fucking explain.
Yeah, there's that weird background guy who like
Yeah.
is being weird, and then he gets off the bus and is like, "I'll see you later," and they're like, "Bye."
Yeah.
And he doesn't have anything to do with anything.
I think the first time we see the dad's house,
Oh,
we
that
both
set is
gasped
insane.
because it was so incredible. You
Yeah,
don't
she
even
gets
see.
home and like goes out on the balcony, and all the action is done like behind
God.
bifurcated or like panels of glass that kind of separate everyone. It's so
Think
weird.
like okay, yeah. If you
And then
want
like a sherbet sky behind.
yes, the colors that aren't real at all. So if you want to get an idea of what this dad's house, in fact, you never see the whole house. You see literally just a shot of his balcony, but it is shot through this glass that like okay, imagine American Hustle if you saw that. Imagine if they had like a glass window in their house that had like panes on it. It's no 70s shit you've ever seen. And this balcony has an astroturf floor, like fake grass floor, and the dad is dressed just like a 70s dude who golfs all the time.
Yeah.
And
his new fiance
the
just
dudes
always
all
has
have
a scarf
has
flowing.
his fiance always has a wind machine on her. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter where she is, her scarf's always glowing. It's so fucking good. And yeah, the backdrop of the sunset is the most unnatural shade of orange and pink ever. It's so weird. Like you're instantly just like everything feels off. Everything's so gauzy in 70s. That like really gauzy 70s lighting where everything kind of looks like it has Vaseline on it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's on their way to the aunt's house. It even has the girls all kind of introduced in little bubbles with their names,
Oh,
like it's like a sitcom
it
opening.
looks like a 70s tampon commercial. It's so good. I mean, he could have done tampon commercials. Who knows? He's a commercial director. That's why everything looks like a fucking weird commercial, but it's a movie. It's so crazy.
I gotta love Mac, the friend who is the fat one, quote unquote, and you're like, is that what fat people were in the 70s?
American movies have this going on too, where you watch a movie from the 70s or 80s and there's like
Even early 90s, it's like,
Sure,
oh, you're
yeah.
the fat kid, and you're like, what?
she's the character who is like what's his face from the Goonies as a chunk.
Yeah, well, he had some
Sure, but like that's the
but like
that's
Ben
the
in
type she's
the
playing.
It miniseries
Oh,
from
yeah.
1990.
Yeah.
He's like, that guy's he's barely husky, which I think
Yeah.
is exactly the joke I used in the Kill Count. But still, it's true. He's like
Yeah,
a solid dude.
yeah, poor Mac. Which apparently Mac is for stomach.
Is that what?
Confirmed. That's why she's named Mac. Her nickname.
Is-
Stomach. Like
Oh,
MAC.
Stomach.
Right.
I
That's
see.
why they call. Because we were confused.
I
We
thought it was
thought
like McDonald's. Like Big Mac.
Yeah. So they're all great. I love all the girls in this. They're so fun and cute, and I like them. Like the movie knows their stock character types, and they play that up so hard. And I think it's a lot of fun. I don't know. It's such a good, fun movie. If you love shit about witches, which everyone does now, witches are super in, and I would love to write a term paper about that. Like, why are witches and horror so popular now? Because I'm sure there's, like you can trace it to like the Me Too movement and stuff. I feel like I wonder if there's connections in
I wonder,
cinema
'cause, like,
between like witches being popular and like waves of feminism.
Yeah, interesting.
Anyway, if you like shit like that, like American Horror Story, that witch season, which I think is the best season
Third
of the
one?
show,
Yeah.
it's not a good season, but some people really like it
I
because
think most
witches.
people like it, yeah.
If you like that, if you like that new Sabrina show,
Oh, yeah.
you like just women
You're
doing
right,
witchy
witches are
shit.
hot right now.
Yeah.
What did we go from? Were werewolves ever in?
No,
So
vampires.
it was vampires then zombies.
I feel like zombies and vampires were kind of happening. I think
Well,
zombies lapped vampires.
Yeah. Now it's witches.
But yeah, if you like witchy shit, this is all. This is
I'm waiting for
your jam.
when Creature from the Black Lagoon is what's hot.
I mean, Shape of
Everyone's-
Water one. Best
That's
picture.
true. You're right.
Yeah, he's hot. He went to the Oscars.
Hit that Oscar home.
Yeah, he did. I love the whole girl getting eaten by the piano.
Oh, that's great.
That's such a good, like, gory, fun sequence. Yeah, you got blood squirt
That's
all over that room.
Golden
coming out of
Chainsaw.
The piano.
That
Oh,
piano
easy.
eating that girl up, chopping her
Easy.
up.
Oh, it's so great. Yeah. I mean, this movie's so fun. The fact that we've barely talked about the actual movie. I feel like in any other episode would maybe tell you it's a bad movie where there's not much to talk about, but in this one it's like it's too weird and fun to go into.
Yeah.
Because again, it just sounds like Mad Libs. We're like, then she gets eaten by a piano, and then a watermelon's pulled out of a well, but it's a head, and then the head bites someone's butt. It sounds like it literally sounds like our Mad Libs episode that we did
Yeah, it does.
months ago. Like,
Did we
the
write a
most-
house?
Yeah, right. I think we wrote House on accident. It'd be a bad podcast episode. Like, let me just. I want to like flip to my notes and just.
Sure, because like I said, I stopped about 10
I
minutes
know
in. I
you
think the
Oh, I
last thing
know
I
you
wrote
did.
was witch cats can close a door.
Yeah.
Because the cat is a witch cat. It's a
Oh,
cat
man.
is a witch.
Sweet is cleaning and looks for bedding. Doll says her name and magics the door shut. There's hair covering Gorgeous in the bath. Logs start attacking Kung Fu. Everything is an illusion. Her aunt climbs into the fridge and comes out in front of the camera and smiles. There's cat music and goldfish coming back to life. Like,
That's
guys,
right, yeah, she
I
would, like, bite a
can't-
goldfish and drop it in
like,
and come back
no,
to
that
life.
would be the like, that's not an episode of anything. That's just me reading stuff. Just me reading a word generator.
Yep.
All right. Oh, I see you eyeballing the. You want to open your present?
Yeah, I'm gonna open. No, it's not a present.
That's true,
Presents are
'cause
given.
it didn't-
Prizes are earned.
Oh, okay.
I earned this.
I was
And
gonna say,
you're right,
also, it
wasn't
wasn't
gift wrapped.
gift wrapped.
So, opening this, it's a slide puzzle for me to practice to be on Survivor.
I did look for. I realized we don't have Vaseline. If you need any to
What about
lube
the
it up.
innards?
I know the innards might.
The innards are gonna be so dry.
Ew.
I'm gonna try. They're gonna chafe. There's gonna be so much friction on the innards when I'm
Can
trying.
you do the puzzle by the microphone so people can hear?
Yeah.
Yeah, take the little thing out.
Okay. So I'm just gonna.
Ooh.
Oh, you know what?
Is the slide good? Is it
It's a little chunky.
okay?
So this would take far too long to do on this podcast, but just rest assured, I'm gonna destroy this and I'm gonna go on Survivor and also win.
Yeah, good.
My social game's strong.
Need to train doing puzzles.
I guarantee they do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would if I was gonna be on Survivor.
Fuck
We talk
yeah.
about Survivor at least once every podcast episode.
That feels like it, right?
Yeah, guys, Jonathan follows me on Twitter now.
Yeah, no, me too, and dead meat.
I know.
Yeah.
I wanted to be on the podcast. I don't care if he has nothing to do with horror at all, but he has something to do with us. You know.
I got the
Oh.
1 and the 2 next week.
Good. All right. Is that our start?
That'll be it, I guess.
We're gonna wrap it up.
That's it for the year.
Yeah, we're off the next 2 weeks.
So, yeah.
Holidays.
We'll be back next year
Yeah.
in 2019.
We have some fun things in store for next year.
There are a lot of
2019.
interviews that are like
Pending.
supposed to pending
They're pending.
interviews.
Scheduling interviews is hard because the people we want to interview are really talented and awesome, and therefore are busy doing awesome shit. And
Mhm.
so it can be hard to schedule things. But yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah.
Got some
Should work it.
surprises I can't say anything about.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Just let us know if you have any movies you want us to watch.
Yeah,
or
I
any
did.
ideas for
Someone
fun stuff.
emailed. They requested. They're like, oh, either House or some other Japanese movie, and that's when I had my memory jog. I'm like, oh shit, we should watch House. So I do read your emails.
Yeah, go ahead and shoot those emails at deadmeatpod@gmail.com.
Because it lets me know that someone out there cares that we reviewed House and is excited. All right, you're gonna keep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You wanna tell us where to follow you?
Yeah, go ahead and follow DebbiePod, Debbie James
Oh man.
on Twitter and Instagram.
Mhm.
Am I missing one?
I don't think so. Now I'm getting distracted
It's
by you
really
doing
fun.
that. You follow me at Carebeck, CAREBECC on Twitter and Instagram. If you want merch, debbystore.com. We got hoodies, we got hats, we
Got
got
'em.
shirts. We've always had shirts, but we now
We
have
still
hoodies
have
and
'em.
hats, and we'll have pins soon. I'm having warehousing issues with the pins.
Yeah.
Figuring that out, it is frustrating.
Yeah, we didn't go to business school.
Oh, God,
we went
no.
to film school, which is much less practical.
Yeah.
Got 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row.
Good job.
Fuck yeah! All right. Next week, or no, we won't be here next week. We'll be here next year.
Next year.
And until then, I'm James.
I'm Chelsea.
This has been the Dead Meat Podcast.
Ones that they're the latter. On the kaiju spectacle side of things, these movies have plenty of great tense action, though each one comes with its own strengths and weaknesses. Godzilla 2014 has some pretty effectively threatening antagonists in the Mutos, and the fighting we do get to see is cool, with a couple of really brilliant looking shots that get across the sheer scale of the creatures. But the key phrase there is what we get to see, because not only is the lighting not great, there also just isn't much of it in general. This movie gets its rocks off by teasing you with the setup for big monster fights, and then cutting away back to who cares. That airport battle being summarized in a news report is downright insulting. King of the Monsters luckily has a lot more action, and it is all pretty solid, but it has similar visibility issues through the dark and murky weather parts. Godzilla vs. Kong thankfully picks up the last two slack, providing a satisfying amount of action that's both exciting and visually stimulating. I especially love the Hong Kong fight. I can see Kong fans maybe getting a bit bothered at how dominant Godzilla is in the fights, with the only round debatable he gets up and is fine immediately after, while Kong gets thoroughly beaten to near death twice. But I don't mind that for reasons we'll get to later. And then GXK New Empire weirdly feels like a step back. The action is good and doesn't have any visibility issues, but weirdly doesn't feel as weighty or anywhere near as tense. Star King and Shimo pose solid obstacles for Kong with how the former outmaneuvers him and the latter debilitates him in one shot, but I never once felt like they had any chance after fearsome evolved Godzilla entered the picture, since he's way stronger and showed that being frozen meant nothing to him. I can only be so annoyed though when most of the action is really fun. The anti-gravity battle was great, and it was pretty funny when Kong weaponized his adoptive son, which is even funnier when you realize that Suko is taller here than Kong himself was in Skull Island. Now, after praising the monster stuff, I hate to bolster the stereotypical kaiju good humans boring reputation the Godzilla franchise gets saddled with all the damn time, but a lot of it seems to come from the monsterverse, and that is not undeserved. 2014 has a really gripping first act with Bryan Cranston losing his wife, carried by an incredible performance. Turns out he's a really good actor, who knew? But then he dies and we follow Tangerine Bullet Train for the rest of it, who has a few charming scenes, and I like when he looks after the kid on the train, but he's not all that interesting and can't fill the void that Cranston left. King of the Monsters is panned for its human cast, and yeah, I can definitely see it. I don't share the hatred everyone has for Wife Lady, whose name I don't care to remember, but her commentary on man is the real monster never gripped me at all. Her husband's a little better, and I like that he has to overcome his grudge against Godzilla killing his son to help him out in the final fight, but otherwise he did little for me. Their daughter is also really boring, and the rest of the cast really needed to shut the fuck up with their D-tier MCU humor.
Yeah.
Stopping on my hands and knees. I did kind of enjoy the villain, who unfortunately hasn't shown back up since, and I did like Ken Watanabe as Dr. Serizawa. The scene where he sacrifices himself to recharge Godzilla was genuinely kind of beautiful and made me feel some stuff. The scene after of Godzilla reconnecting with humanity was pretty neat. The score was grand and pretty, and I liked it. Overall, though, not a very strong cast, and I wish they didn't keep cutting back to them to interrupt the fights. That killed some of the momentum and stopped me from getting as into the action as I wish I could have. Godzilla vs. Kong has some better human stuff, but that is not on Godzilla's side at all. Madison from the last movie has gone from uninteresting to really annoying. Same with with Lemon Bullet Train and Russell Deadpool 2. Their humor fell flat 90% of the time, and I did not care about any of them. They also waste the really interesting premise of Serizawa having a son who pilots the machine that nearly kills Godzilla. It's never emphasized, he gets no character moments, he sucks. Kong's side is pretty good though. Mostly it's just your average bunch of Joe Schmoes that I forget about immediately, but his connection with G is actually pretty sweet, and I enjoy getting to see them interact. That continues into New Empire, which I believe to have the strongest overall human cast in the Monsterverse. I once again like Gia's connection with Kong, but also with her adoptive mother who has to grapple with the idea that her daughter may be happier living in the Hollow Earth with the Eevee tribe. Is her defying that expectation and staying with her real family the most predictable thing ever? I mean, kinda, but I thought it was sweet. Sue me. Trapper was also a delight of a character. Just a ton of fun whenever he's on screen. Lemon was a lot better too. Still the obvious weak link to the main cast who gets no real resolution to his arc of maybe we don't need to broadcast everything on the internet, but he played off of Trapper better than he did with the annoying children, so I could put up with it. Now, before I close off this section of the video, I'll say that while I have enjoyed these movies, you may notice that I've been more positive towards Kong's side of things than Godzilla's, despite Goji being the one to kickstart it. And yeah, as much as I enjoy him and his fight scenes, he just doesn't have as much interesting to do. Kong is not only backed by a much stronger human cast, but he is my favorite solo Monsterverse movie for being the highlight of the crossover since he's typically given some level of emotional hook. When he signaled I lost home to Gia, that actually made me kind of sad. Godzilla doesn't get much in that department outside of getting crankier after Mothra's death and before she comes back. He also doesn't serve to be as compelling of an allegory as his predecessors and isn't as charmingly goofy to make up for that. I didn't need these to be on par with the best of the series to like them though. Again, none of these 4 films are series highlights, but they are all still fun watches. Even 2014, which has a reputation of being boring, still has enough enjoyable scenes to make it not a chore to get through. They're not high art or anything, but frankly they're doing a lot better than about any other cinematic universe out there right now, and I find that very funny. Now here we are with our final set of films to cover, the Reiwa era. And as much as I'd like to talk about these collectively, the live action ones are striving for very different things, and the anime trilogy is even more different from them, so I kinda have to take them all separately. But I'll be as brief as I can so we can get to the final ranking. Starting this era off is Shin Godzilla, widely considered to be one of the top 3 best Godzilla films across almost every ranking that I've seen, and I can absolutely see why that is. It gives a very interesting look into the Japanese government's response to the Godzilla attack, criticizing the pitfalls of bureaucracy and how it can delay getting citizens the help they need in a crisis. That's a very fresh take on the human side of a Godzilla story, and if you want to call it one of the best, I would not argue against that. Personally speaking, for my own taste though, I tend to prefer when these movies are able to get me to grow attached to the humans and strengthen my emotional investment. Something Shin Godzilla doesn't do, because that's not what it's trying to do. But that's totally fair. I respect what it's going for, and I do still like it. It just means that inherently it does not play as well to my preferences, and so it won't rank as high on my list as I imagine it would for many others. The Godzilla side of things, on the other hand, I do love. He's not in it a whole lot, but I love the concept of this ever-evolving creature, with that horrifying final shot showing what he could have become if he wasn't stopped there and then. Conceptually, this is probably the scariest version of the character to date, helped by one of the best atomic breath scenes of all time, harrowing in a way unlike any scene in any previous entry. I can't say I fully love this movie, but I do still really like it, and there are some all-timer moments in among everything. Then I'm gonna follow that up with 5 words you probably would have never expected to hear from a Godzilla fan. The anime trilogy was bad. Godzilla's barely in it, the animation style does him no favors by having him look like a dollop of grey sludge who moves like he's wading through molasses. Any cool ideas they introduce end up being grossly underutilized. I didn't grow to like any of the human characters. The love triangle sucks, the whole trilogy builds up to a deeply unsatisfying ending. I do not like these movies. They're far from the worst movies I've ever seen, hell, they're not even the worst Godzilla movies, but they're entirely dull and lifeless experiences that I don't think are worth the time to watch unless you're actively seeking out every movie in the series like I did. They drag the Reiwa collection down so hard. The era isn't out for the count though, because following that up is one of the fan favorites, Godzilla -1. And spoilers, but it's my favorite as well, like by far. It marries the most terrifying and intense Godzilla scenes in this series, feeling so much more up close and personal than any other version of him, even if Shin is conceptually more horrifying, with the most compelling human plot out of them all. An endearing cast of people I grow to care about, making me care more for their safety when they're in the thick of a Godzilla attack. A gripping plot about survivor's guilt, making our main protagonist Koichi easy to sympathize with and relate to his fear of death. And an especially effective message about the value of continuing to live. No matter how bleak things look, and no matter how much you may think you don't deserve it, there will always be a reason to keep going. It's a movie where I cared about the characters so much that even though my suspension of disbelief was pushed a bit by the ending, I could easily look past it because of how satisfying it felt to finally see these characters get a glimmer of hope after the horrors they had to endure. Oh, and this is my favorite atomic breath ever put to screen. For as fantastic as Shin's is, the one let out on Ginza is just on another level. The build-up had me on the edge of my seat even on a rewatch. It is unfathomably good. I need to stop myself here, otherwise I can and will yap about how much I love -1 forever. It's a movie I struggle to
animation frame.
And yet I would still say many of them in the chance. It is the only Godzilla movie where I'd go as far as to call it one of my favorite movies in general. As much as I adore the original, GMK, Final Wars and so on, I'd go as far as to say I love -1 more than all of the others combined. Unfortunately, I don't think even -1 can save Reiwa from being my least favorite era by default, since it's the only one where I don't like a majority of the films. Thanks, anime trilogy. Given enough time though, I don't doubt that it will change once it has more films to its name. -1 and Shin have shown that they're interested in taking the character in new directions that have worked wonders for me and more seasoned Goji fans. I cannot wait to see what Takashi Yamazaki does with them next. I will be there no matter what. And now here we are at the ranking portion of the video. To reiterate what I said in the intro in case you forgot, or skipped it, I'm going to be going pretty rapid fire here. Only a couple sentences tops per movie. And while that won't allow me to be super thorough, I do have a bit of a compromise. In the description, I've linked a letterbox list with the ranking I'm about to read out, essentially slightly different if any of my opinions have changed since making this video. If you want to see more in-depth thoughts on any of the individual movies, you can go into that list and jump to my diary entry for any movie from there. It means more reading on your end if for some reason you really care that much about intaking any more of my waffling, but it also saves me dozens of hours recording and editing a 4-hour video, so I think the trade-off is fair. Just keep in mind before we start the ranking that a lot of these are bunched up super close in quality to the point where I could swap some of them around and not even notice. And that these are almost all based off a singular viewing. I'm not nearly as experienced with Goji as many watching this video probably are, so I'd imagine many of my opinions would be subject to change on rewatches. Actually, outside of the letterboxd averages and a few ranking videos I've seen before, I generally don't know what the consensus is for a majority of these films, so I've got no clue how well most of my takes will match up with the fandom. If I go against the grain for anything, or just have a flat-out dogshit take, which is entirely possible, then let me know in the comments. I'm sincerely curious to get some other perspectives here. Oh, and for transparency's sake, while I was able to see most of these subbed via Tubi, the Criterion Channel, Pluto TV, and Netflix, there were a few that I had to seek out dubs for. Sometimes having to go to the Internet Archive because Pluto TV either skipped that movie or wasn't cooperating with my VPN that day, or sometimes Pluto had it and things worked fine, but they only had the dub for some reason. Plus, I rented Shin Godzilla on the Microsoft Store, which for some reason only came with the English dub. Thanks, that's so cool. So for that versus Destroya and the first 4 Millennium films, I did have to watch the dub versions, but I tried not to let let that influence how I feel about them. If any of them are bastardized in these versions, then please let me know because I am none the wiser. I did see the dub of Raids again too, but that's an entire re-edit to the point where it's essentially a different movie. And I did watch the original Japanese version later that day anyway. Gigantus would be dead last on the list if you're curious. Alright, preamble over, time to start ranking. 38, Godzilla 1998. That sure was a lot of fish. 37, All Monsters Attack. Fails as a movie because most of it is dream sequences and stock footage. Fails as an anti-bullying PSA for children because it ends with the main kid picking a fight and then joining the bullies anyway. 36, Godzilla the Planet Eater. For an hour, it's whatever, and then the last act is maddening. The final fight is like 3 actions stretched out to 20 minutes, and it constantly keeps cutting away to the equally uninteresting human stuff. This whole trilogy led to such an unsatisfying payoff, did not work for me at all. 35, Godzilla Planet of the Monsters. Intriguing opening, incredibly raw ending, almost everything in between is boring angst that I could not get invested in. 34, King Kong vs. Godzilla. Probably lower for me than it is for most people, but I find the majority of this kind of boring with only a few funny moments here and there to keep my attention. I like the last 25 minutes because the fight is fun and it has some satisfying payoffs, but I don't think it was worth the journey to get there. 33, Godzilla vs. Megagyrus. The new titular kaiju is actually kind of enjoyable and I like the fight it has with Godzilla. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie failed to hold my interest. It sets up an interesting story about survivor's guilt, but then doesn't expand on it in a satisfying way after the intro. Somehow they managed to make the plot with the insane premise of a satellite is built to shoot black holes at Godzilla one of the most boring things in the series. 32, Godzilla Raids Again. Probably only as high as it is because I had the English bastardization re-edit fresh in my mind before I watched the correct version, making this look way better in comparison. I also had fun watching this in a call with Nem. This is the only one I did that for. The movie itself though is not very good, but I guess my feeling towards it is mostly flat neutral rather than outright negative, even if it does skirt pretty close to that line. 31, Invasion of Astro Monster. Might be a hot take, but this didn't do much for me. The opening act is solid, but then it drags its feet a lot after that, not keeping me all that interested at the end. Love the Godzilla victory dance though.
I heard people say that one's a really good one.
Shockingly way higher than I expected any of the anime trilogy to get. Still didn't really like this one. The cool concept of Mechagodzilla City is not used to its fullest at all, but this has its moments. Parts of the ending go kinda hard, and it didn't actually get on my watch, so this gets to be my favorite of the trilogy.
Sorry, this is kind of boring. I'm trying to find equipment and shit
I like the titular
for my
space
puppet.
His design balance is dumb and clunky,
So
but genuinely cool.
I've never done
I'm
this
forever
with a
grateful
lot
for
of.
the Godzilla equivalent to Batman Magic Crystals, but I didn't get too into the story of this one, and the action is not one of the stronger showings of the series. 28, Son of Godzilla. A very mediocre
Searching
movie for the most
around.
part, with an ending that I got shockingly swept up in that managed to elevate it a few spots higher than it probably would have gotten otherwise. It wasn't nearly as annoying as I expected. It probably has one of, if not the worst Godzilla suit in the series though. 27, Terror of Mechagodzilla. This is the cut-off point where I like every movie from here on out. A lot of this is flat average to me, but my opinion of it is elevated up to slightly positive by a few strong emotional moments and fun bits of action. 26, Godzilla vs. Megalon. If Godzilla vs. Gigan's so good, then why isn't there a Godzilla vs. Gigan 2? This one's enjoyable enough, if soured a bit by the kind of egregious amount of reused stock footage. Big fan of the dropkick though. One of the greatest Showa Godzilla moments of all time. 25, Godzilla vs. Gigan. Fun in the first half, I like the humans here, shout out to Corn Guy, then kind of drops off a bit with a less engaging second half and some hit or miss monster action. 24, Godzilla Tokyo SOS. Kind of a standard Godzilla movie on its own merits that isn't a particularly satisfying sequel since it reduces the Against Mechagodzilla cast of cameos and then sends them away instead of continuing their stories. Still, I like it, I wasn't bored watching it, and the ending is very nice. 23, Godzilla 2000 Millennium. Decent revival for the series after Hollywood made an ass of themselves that doesn't really excel or stand out in any major way. I like it, the visuals fascinate me enough to stick with me somewhat, otherwise not one of my favorites. 22, Godzilla King of the Monsters. The pieces are there for a really fun movie. I like a lot of the action, I just wish it was clearer and that it didn't cut back to the humans so often. It's also way too long given how little investment I had in the story. Sarazawa Sacrifice is the exception, that shit was peak. 21, Godzilla 2014. This is more or less tied with King of the Monsters. Has a really strong opening act, the rest of it is fine with a few bits of monster action selling the destructive scale amazingly, just not super investing, and I wish they kept Heisenberg as the main character because he easily has one of the best performances in any of these movies. 20, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. I was kinda bored during the first half hour or so I was worried that I wouldn't like this one. Thankfully it picks up later on, especially with the final battle, which may be my favorite in the whole Showa era. Could have climbed up an extra 10 spots or so if it didn't take so long to hook me. 19, Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. A mix between dumb fun action schlock and some genuinely kinda compelling drama on Kong's ends. Shame that Godzilla's got on the short end of the stick in terms of having anything going on outside of being the big strong guy who hits other guys. 18, The Return of Godzilla. A very strong introduction to the Heisei era. As much as I like the goofy Showa campiness, this returning to the roots of the original and trying to more closely match its darker tone is very much appreciated, even if it doesn't excel to nearly the same extent. 17, Godzilla vs. Kong. Very mixed bag in terms of the human story, elevated by the best action in the Monsterverse. Love the fight scenes in this and how overwhelmingly dangerous Godzilla feels as the antagonist. The team up against Mechagodzilla legit made me want to cheer on my first viewing, and I'm not including Skull Island on the list, but I would rank it either directly above or below this, whichever one I prefer switches depending on the day. 16, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Cool intro for the titular Hydra with some fun team-up monster action and even some human gunfights that aren't half bad and give this one more of an identity. The story isn't the most riveting out there, but it works well enough. The Venus Lady concept was an interesting enough hook. A good time overall, just not a top-tier entry. 15, Shin Godzilla. If you were looking at this from a critical standpoint and put this near the top, I 100% get it. Ordering it by my subjective enjoyment though, it is a bit lower for me than I imagined it is for most. It's good, I like it, but I only really love some of the Godzilla sequences. The rest of it doesn't click with me quite as much, even if I appreciate the different angle they approach the story at. 14, Destroy All Monsters. Tons of fun monster action in this one, bringing in pretty much everybody Toho could get at the time, and it's a blast seeing them all team up to body Ghidorah. I like the human storyline with the astronauts too. Anytime it started to drag, it would grab my attention back with a really strong dramatic beat or funny joke. All in all, this to me is just a better version of what Astro Monster was going for. I really enjoyed it. 13, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. Dumb title aside given its relation to the Showa films or lack thereof, this is a pretty solid take on the big robot lizards. While I find the Showa one to be much cooler, this one as a movie did resonate with me a bit more since it has that emotional core with us as raising the baby Godzillasaurus. Their goodbye at the end shockingly really moved me, and the action was pretty fun too. 12, Ebirah Horror of the Deep. Okay, this is one of the few times where I know I'm placing it way higher than anyone else would. This is basically just a James Bond movie that happens to be Godzilla, in a role that you can kinda tell apart was
Ebirah.
for Kong. The characterization for him is way off base from what it normally is, and the titular Ebirah isn't around much. All valid reasons to dislike this movie, but they're what make me love it. I love the goofy silly charm of the island infiltrations, the amount of personality they managed to give to the monsters, and the surf rock score really stuck out to me. 11, Godzilla vs. Biollante. Probably lower for me than many others would have it, but I still love this one for having one of my favorite kaiju in the series. Biollante is
I'm gonna
a
watch that one
monster with a tragic origin being the vessel
soon.
for Kami's deceased daughter. That tragic
Biollante
so
looks
much more
really
satisfying
cool.
when she's able to take Godzilla down and rest peacefully in the end. The corporate spy stuff is fun, and I like the messaging about how scientific advancements can be used for good or bad depending on who's using them and for what reason. I wish I was more attached to the other humans so I could feel more of the big emotional moments. Other than that though, I have no major complaints. 10, Mothra vs. Godzilla. Helped a lot to reinvent reinvigorate my interest after the first Yoooo films besides the original were starting to lose me. This one's really fun, introducing one of my favorite kaiju to Godzilla's world, while also having something to say about capitalism and over-commercialization of everything. Big fan of Egg Guy. It's only held back by an overly long final fight with really repetitive sound design. 9. Godzilla vs. Hedorah. The word I most commonly hear used to describe this one is psychedelic. So damn weird in its presentation that it fascinates me and gives me a genuine admiration for the creativity that went into it. It's a mix of genuinely compelling and ironically hilarious that honestly could have gone for a spot in the top 5, if I didn't get tired of it halfway through the overly long and repetitive climax. Still, it was all worth it for the atomic breath flight scene. 8. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Does the time travel stuff make sense? No. Do I care? Not especially. I had a blast with this one. The Futurian story feels different enough from shows overabundance of alien invasions, and I got as much enjoyment from the humans here as I did with the monster fights. Not just feeling the dramatic beats, but also in terms of comedy. The Spielberg cameo, the random go-ahead make my day reference, practically everything M11 did, who may be the funniest non-Douglas Gordon character in the series. I was having a really good time with this one. I'm not as huge on Ghidorah's new origin story, but Mecha Ghidorah is fucking awesome. 7. Godzilla vs. Mothra. Not to be confused with Mothra vs. Godzilla, of course. Not as funny as its show counterpart, yet it manages to maintain its momentum to the end a lot better, while conveying similarly effective messages about capitalistic greed. This one also looks a lot nicer, and I found myself even more invested in the family dynamic of the main human cast. 6. Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. That last act had some of the biggest I want to get up and cheer moments in the franchise. Not only were the awesome fight scenes kicked off with one of the sickest entrances of all time, but also for how powerful it is to see Akane go from a loner to someone who's able to build relationships back up and keep going now that she has people in her life to fight for. Absolutely fantastic stuff that massively elevates the movie. I thought was just standardly pretty good for most of its runtime. 5. Godzilla vs. Destroyer. I'm a little let down by some of the human elements not being as compelling in this one. Something I can easily look past when this is some of the best Godzilla content out there. One of his best designs, the best story throughout the whole Heisei era with the ticking clock provided by his impending meltdown, one of his all-time greatest foes in Destroyer, and an incredibly powerful ending that would have been the perfect way to send this pop culture icon off for good, allowing him to die while his son absorbs his radiation, continuing his legacy since the threat of Godzilla exists for as long as nuclear weaponry does. 4. Godzilla Final Wars. Exceeds even versus Hedorah in terms of sheer weirdness. 2 hours of absolute off-the-wall batshit insanity. Not nearly as narratively strong as a lot of the ones below it, but I had so much fun with it that I'm putting it this high anyway. Whether ironically or otherwise, there was not a minute of this movie where I wasn't enjoying myself. 3. Godzilla 1954. What else needs to be said about the original classic? Love the dark tone and how Godzilla's rampage is like a nuke going off in slow motion, showing the horrors Japan had to face as the target of nuclear weaponry in World War II. This is fascinating, both as an allegory and criticism of this kind of weapon being made, and as an early piece of cinema making great use of suits and miniature sets. If you haven't seen it already despite sitting through this video, you are sorely missing out. 2. GMK. I'm not reading out that full title. Happy for you, or sorry that happened. Utterly shocked me with how much I love this one. The new take on Godzilla being a collection of souls seeking revenge on Japan for their actions in the war is so intriguing, delivering on a great message about how countries shouldn't just sweep their mistakes under the rug. Godzilla's design in this with the whited out pupils is sick. He feels like a more actively malevolent force of destruction. His fights are awesome. I love the other kaiju in this, and Yuri Tachibana is one of my favorite human characters with a much more emotionally resonant story than I expected. I couldn't stop thinking about this one the day after I saw it. It's so good. And number 1, Godzilla -1. The Ultraman My Favorite comic panel says more than any other ramble I could ever go on. I adore -1 with all of my heart, and it stands out as my favorite film of the decade so far. It deserved all of the praise it got and then some. Alright, so there we go. My thoughts on every Godzilla era and my overall ranking of the series. I had so much fun going through this.
-1
There
is
honestly
pretty
weren't as
good.
many low points as I expected.
I need to watch it
Generally,
again.
The worst that most of them got was just a bit boring. I really hated watching any of them, while I loved quite a few. I'm glad to finally say that I'm a fan of this big dumb lizard after being interested in him for most of my childhood, and I'll definitely be keeping up with each of his new adventures on the big screen whenever I can. There are a few things that I'm looking forward to as much as Yamazaki's next outing with Goji, regardless if it ends up being a sequel to -1. I hope you enjoyed hearing me yap about this movie watching journey I went on over this last year. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Godzilla movies are, or if there's any non-movie Godzilla media you'd recommend. Since that's most of the fun character for me as well. I think the only thing in that department I've experienced is the GBA fighting game. I think I've gone on for long enough, so I'll close this out now. Thanks for watching, and if you're watching this on the day it releases, then be sure to go wish Nem a happy birthday. Alright, balls in your court now, Nem, to make your own Godzilla ranking. Do it, you won't, cowards.
I gotta watch them all first. Where's Rararu? What are up with these names? Oh shit. Okay. I was just making sure no one was chatting. Sometimes someone might pop in while I'm looking at guides. And I never notice. I get sad. Yo, where's this motherfucker? I'm trying to buy attachments for my automation. And I just saw them. Are they in the fucking wall? Oh, they're hidden like right there. Shit. What the fuck? At least they restrict you from buying it based on your level. Alright, let me see what I need. Um, 1 second. Let me put on something else. Killer.
Wait, there's a ladder there. Loose.
Oh,
Go back this way a little bit. You might get caught first. There's a camera there. Shit, run. He's coming.
It was in the final criteria, meaning that the presence of any one of these items, mental illness, voluntary disappearance, criminal activity, animal predation, would disqualify a case from being included under the missing 411 umbrella. This list is important, and we will return to it. Now, generally, the cases have an air of mystery about them, and with that said, this channel has never been about bashing missing 411, and this video is not intended to do that either. When you know people believe in stories that are verifiably inaccurate, do you do nothing because the people seem to like, enjoy, and trust the source? Or do you try to show them the evidence they're not seeing, even if it's uncomfortable? I guess in this video, I'm trying to do the latter. The end goal of this video is not to get people to stop reading, watching, or listening to Missing 411.
Holy shit.
In fact, I think you should do those things.
A lot of
Get
money.
information from every source you can. And if my point of view is considered the skeptical one, I would encourage you to seek out the opposite. See whose information makes more sense to you. It's always important to know the arguments of the other side. So if you're wondering what I personally think about Missing 411, because it's a question I often get, well, my answer is that I have a lot of concerns. These concerns revolve solely around the way information is portrayed in Missing 411 and other information that is not mentioned at all. So I'll come right out and say, I don't believe in Missing 411. What does that mean? It means I don't believe that the long list of cases presented in Missing 411 as having strange, paranormal, or unexplainable elements are all legitimate. Now, there are some genuinely strange and unexplainable cases in the Missing 411 archive, but it is my contention that the vast majority of these cases do not even meet Missing 411's own standards for qualifying a case. People also ask why I don't like David Paulides. The simple answer is I don't like nor dislike him. I don't know him. This video is not going to be about David Paulides as a person. It's going to be about his research. So this is not intended to be an indictment of him so much as the information presented in his books and movies. And criticism of research is essential for refinement of future research into the missing persons genre. If someone builds off the work I have done and learns new details or develops new theories I haven't thought of, then that is a good thing. It is refining the understanding of whatever case that is. In this video, we're going to go over a bunch of cases, some I've previously covered, and even some I haven't made videos on, but that I've researched independently. That way, you can see why I don't believe in Missing 411, and then you can judge for yourself whether that's a reasonable position to hold or not. And I'll also have a public video I can just link to all the people who ask me questions about what I think about Missing 411. So I will walk you through the exact same things I went through, case by case, and you can see if you come out the other end feeling the same. You're getting the crash course in this video. Throughout, I'm going to do my best to show you the sources for everything so that you don't have to take my word for anything. You can go look at it yourself, which I strongly encourage you to do. Anyway, now that we have that long-winded preamble out of the way, let's go over some Missing 411 cases that I think shouldn't be Missing 411 cases. So, one of the main issues I have with these cases is that some of them seem to heavily skew in the direction of making a case seem paranormal by hinting at the possibility of something like a cryptid or UFOs being involved. And to be honest, I've often felt that Bigfoot is being inferred in many of these cases, but perhaps that's only because I was aware Paulides was a Bigfoot researcher before starting Missing 411. Let me show you what I mean. Jackie Copeland. I covered the case of Jackie Copeland some time ago. It was an incident back in May of 1950. He was a 2-year-old boy spending the day with his family in Pleasantville, Pennsylvania. At some point, Jackie wandered off. Now, Jackie's father worked for an oil company, and his family was staying on land leased from the company. Once Jackie was reported missing, a ton of people came in to assist in the search, including many volunteers from the oil company. Fortunately, Jackie was found quickly and returned to his family. But the important part in the Missing 411 book that I want to draw your attention to is this quote. An article in the Logansport Press, dated May 17, 1950, had an interview with the Copelands and heard Jackie's rendition of what occurred during his night in the woods. The press wanted to hear how the boy got to his location in the swamp, what he had to drink or eat, and how he kept warm. Jackie first was asked why he left the picnic, and here is his quote. He saw something peering at him from behind a big tree. When he approached, the creature scampered into the brush. Jackie didn't explain anything more about leaving the picnic at that point. The article goes on to say, he recounted in child talk his adventure in an awful blackness, peopled by a great throbbing giant and a tall friendly tree, and wild animals howling in the distance, and the unfamiliar shouts of strangers prowling nearby. Okay, so when you hear those excerpts, what comes to mind? Obviously, it's not very descriptive, but it might evoke some kind of image in your mind. The child sees a creature watching him that runs off into the brush, and shortly thereafter, young Jackie goes missing. Later, he encounters a great throbbing giant. It gives the case an added element of something creepy or paranormal. But the paragraph I just read to you from Missing 411 takes the newspaper article almost entirely out of context. Let's look at the same Logansport Press article that Paulides referenced and compare the two. The search went on all night. Then about 9 o'clock, an oil field worker dropped out of a group of searchers to go to a nearby pump house to make some adjustments in the machinery. He saw something peering at him from behind a big tree. When he approached, the creature scampered into the brush. It was a badly frightened, oil-smeared little Jackie. By now you're probably going, wait, what? But that's right. The actual newspaper reference for this story has an entirely different context. While the Missing 411 version somehow attributes this description to Jackie Copeland telling the story of how he disappeared, the newspaper is actually telling the tale of the searcher who found an oil-smeared Jackie Copeland, hiding behind a tree and scampering into the brush. Nobody saw any creature. Jackie was the supposed creature. The issue here is that the Missing 411 book quotes 2 sentences out of an entire paragraph that is telling a story. Now, if we give the benefit of the doubt and say this mishap is...
Jackie first was asked why he left the picnic. He saw something peering.
entirely by accident, then what are the chances that this accident also happens to make the story more mysterious, creepy, or paranormal?
Right.
Something to think about. And if you're stuck on the actual description that Jackie gave of the awful blackness, the throbbing giant, and the tall friendly tree, let's remember that Jackie was 2 years old when this happened. Let's talk about the case of Eloise Lindsay. Let me preface this by saying that Paulides writes that this case is definitely one of the strangest stories in the entire book. Let's see. 22-year-old Eloise Lindsay disappeared in 1989 in Table Rock State Park, South Carolina. This is another case I've covered on the channel back in the day, and probably not very well either, but I never focused on the discrepancies. If you read the Missing 411 Eastern U.S. version of the story starting on page 133, the story goes something like this. Eloise was on a long hike doing 7 days alone before meeting a friend. On the 3rd day of her hike, she started being followed by a group of men who meant to harm her. Eloise drops her backpack and equipment and runs off trail to try and avoid these men. She was eventually found in a delirious state by a hunter after 16 days missing. Afterwards, she was taken to safety, but up until the moment she was found, she claimed that she was being chased through the woods by a group of men she never saw. She then told her story to reporters from her hospital bed. Paulides finishes the story by saying, quote, "My question for Eloise and her mother is what did the girl see? Her mother indicates she saw something, and what she saw is something that she obviously does not want to make public, for whatever reason." At the end of Eloise Lindsay's story, Paulides refers the reader to the Dennis Martin case and the existence of the fabled wild men that live in the Smokies, obviously making a connection between what Eloise experienced and the supposed feral wild men from the Dennis Martin case. And don't worry, we'll hit the Dennis Martin case. The main takeaway from the Missing 411 presentation of this case is this. Eloise was stalked by some strange and shadowy people for over 2 weeks. There is no mention of the group of men ever doing anything other than silently following Eloise in the woods, and the only speculation Paulides puts forth about who they could be is the supposed wild men. Why does this matter? Well, let's look at the reporting at the time. Miss Lindsay said she knew rescuers were searching for her, but also believed men working in the area were bent on harming her. She said the men had dogs, monitors for tracking down living animals, whistles, guns, tractors, cars, mopeds, boats. I feel like if they had been part of the search party, they would have been calling out, "Eloise, we're here to get you." At some points, they came very close to finding me, but it was never at the right time. Other articles mention that Eloise could hear the men using walkie-talkies and even talking about her. If you read the articles, you get the sense that Eloise may be suffering from some sort of mental illness. She went in for a psych evaluation after she left the hospital. It really seems like she was perhaps paranoid and eventually determined that the searchers were actually men out to cause her harm. The main question is, why doesn't Missing 411 mention any of this? Is it because you can't push a feral wild man theory if the missing person says that they were being chased by cars, mopeds, and boats? Seriously consider what it does to the perception of a case when you say she was being chased by mysterious men she never saw, versus She knew searchers were in the area, but she felt she was being chased by men using dogs, guns, tractors, cars, mopeds, and boats. The two scenarios give off very different vibes, one that's mysterious and one that's not at all. In the end, this case should have been excluded due to mental illness. Karen Cooney. Karen Cooney was a 15-year-old girl in Corey, Pennsylvania, who disappeared in 1968. The missing 411 story goes that Karen was in her backyard doing chores when her family heard her scream. When they went to check on her, Karen had vanished. A search was initiated, and a little over a day later, Karen was found in a dazed state. She told authorities she was chased from her home by a big man with a knife, who followed her into the woods a long ways until she fell asleep. Again, a story of someone being chased through the woods. So what's the deal with this case? Well, let's read some additional information that newspapers talked about. You see, authorities quickly found out that Karen was making things up. The FBI got involved when there was allegations of kidnapping, and when the state police talked to her, she told them that she had been very nervous and high-strung lately, and decided to go for a walk in the woods near her home. Her scream, which triggered the theory that Karen may have been kidnapped as she was hanging the family wash, occurred when she entered a wooded area and had to cross an electric fence, which shocked her. So the whole Karen Cooney story is kind of just a fabrication. But in the same Missing 411 book, Politis compares this case to that of Eloise Lindsay, saying, "This case is not the only case in which strange-looking men are described in the woods associated with a disappearance." He then refers to Eloise's story and ends the paragraph with, "It's an odd coincidence that both Eloise Lindsay and Karen Cooney describe being chased by men and they don't or won't supply descriptions. Why? Is it just me, or are both those sentences kind of contradictory? Anyway, we actually know that Eloise did describe the people chasing her, almost too well, while Karen was just never chased at all. But these cases in Missing 411 work to create a narrative that there are these strange people in the woods. The Karen Cooney case should have been excluded due to voluntary disappearance. Let's talk Kevin Dye. Kevin Dye was a 9-year-old boy who disappeared in 1971 from a cabin in Wyoming. Missing 411 mentions that Kevin is disabled, but doesn't go into detail about just how disabled he is. Kevin was playing ping pong outside with family when the ball was hit out into the trees and brush. Naturally, Kevin chased after the ball. He ran into the woods and did not return. A search began, and some searchers said that they saw Kevin, but he ran off into the woods. Food was left out for him and was taken quickly with no culprit having been found. Searchers also found a lean-to shelter made of pine boughs, as well as some stick and stone constructions that his parents said looked like the stuff that Kevin would make. Kevin was actually found after 11 days alongside a creek, laying down exhausted. He had lost 20 pounds, a quarter of his body weight, and a doctor said that he believed Kevin ate nothing the entire time. The Missing 411 entry ends by saying that Kevin was not telling anyone what happened during his time in the woods. Keep that last sentence in mind for just a minute. Now, to me, this case isn't very strange to begin with, but it gets even less strange when you learn that Kevin was so disabled that he couldn't really speak at all. He was barely communicative, but he had more energy than any kid we can probably imagine. One newspaper said that he had the physical condition of a top athlete, but who can become a screaming, flailing animal when he fails to make himself understood. In fact, the newspapers report that Kevin was so hyperactive that his parents had to give him 9 tranquilizers a day, and it still wasn't enough. This poor kid was so unbelievably energetic that they had to give him enough meds to kill a horse, and it still didn't work. Is it any wonder that he just ran off into the forest? His parents said that their yelling and screaming for him probably drove him into the forest even more. All of the constructs that were found in the forest were probably Kevin, as confirmed by the parents, and the missing food was probably Kevin as well. You see, the doctor assumed Kevin didn't eat because he lost so much weight. But consider that we have an ultra-hyperactive kid who is now off his 9 tranquilizers a day. This kid was probably burning many thousands of calories per day while lost. Even with some food, he still would have lost that weight. There was also some local people who reported that they had break-ins at their cabins where someone stole their jars of peanut butter. As it turns out, peanut butter was Kevin's favorite food. It seems readily apparent to me that this hyperactive child spent 10 to 11 days running around building things and stealing peanut butter until he eventually lost a quarter of his body weight, at which point he finally collapsed and was found by searchers. I'm not sure why this is a Missing 411 case. It should have been excluded based on mental illness. Moving on, I know Missing 411 has often made mention of the children who disappear and show up many miles away, or are found at incredible elevations. Okay, if true, it also sounds amazing to me. So let's take a look at some of those cases. I got this list from Missing 411,
That's a
Devils
little
in the Details,
complicated.
page 362.
I'm trying to
This is
find
a list of
macros right
missing
now.
people by distance traveled. So let's look at the number 1 on that list, Jack Hodges, who apparently traveled 50 miles at only 7 years old. Here's the story. Jack Hodges. 7-year-old Jack Hodges was with his family visiting a ranch 30 miles to the north of the city of Seligman in northern Arizona. At some point, and for some reason, Jack disappeared along with his dog. The dog returned a few hours later, but there was no Jack. A search was immediately initiated to try and find the boy, as temperatures in the area were getting down to 14 degrees at night. 2 days into the search, Jack was found by 2 cowboys on the slopes of Mount Floyd, which lies about 10 miles to the northeast of Seligman. A newspaper article referenced in Missing 411 states, searchers estimated the warmly clad youngster must have walked some 50 miles, mostly in circles. Jack was in relatively good condition. He was taken to a hospital and released a day later. Paulides ends Jack's case with these lines: "I will continue to present these cases to exemplify a point. We can't ignore what seems illogical. We can't attempt to reconcile in our minds what seems uncomfortable to believe." Some pretty cryptic words there. Paulides makes a point to say that there was no water in the area, and that only a little snow was on the mountain. He states that the idea that Jack could have eaten this snow does not make sense. Keep that last part in mind. Paulides says it makes no sense that Jack could have eaten snow. So what's the reality of this situation? Did little Jack Hodges really walk 50 miles in 2 days? Probably not. Let's think about it. This is literally just something a searcher told a newspaper, and for who knows what reason, and he was probably exaggerating. Jack disappeared from a ranch that was about 30 miles north of Seligman, and was found at a location about 10 miles northeast of Seligman. Jack could have walked 20 to 25 miles in order to get to Mount Floyd.
I just saw your
I'll
message.
also add that one newspaper says that Jack was found near Mount Floyd, in an area about 20 miles north of Seligman. If accurate, Jack would have only been 10 miles away from the ranch that he disappeared from. But
Hope you're doing
believe it or
good.
not, the
Sorry.
distance is totally besides the point.
I was
of this
reading my
case.
guide.
It's
I'm
literally
trying to
not
figure
an
out
issue at all.
this
Even if he did
complicated
walk 50
class.
miles, it still would be virtually irrelevant.
It's not that
Unbelievably
complicated.
impressive, yes, but
Rune
irrelevant.
Fencer's probably more
You might
complicated than
notice that
Puppet
in the Missing
Master.
411
but-
book, there's no quotes sharing what Jack had to say regarding his disappearance. This gives the story its air of mystery. What could
I'm
have
also
happened to
watching
him while he
something
was
'cause
lost
this is
when
all
he
kind of
traveled an impossible 50 miles? And
boring-ish.
this also might lead you to think that he said nothing at all about the incident.
Ugh,
But
I
Jack
probably won't
Hodges
even do the
told his story
BSNM
to reporters, and
because
he
I don't
shares
have. There's still a lot of stuff I don't have.
When asked how he survived
I thought
the
I
freezing temperatures of the waste, Jack responded,
might
"I
have
curled up
everything
under
I
a
need,
tree
but it
and
looks like I
slept all
need
night."
more shit.
Remember, Jack was warmly clad. He goes on to say that he was taking his dog on a long walk and just kept walking after leaving
I've
the
already
ranch.
started up some
Jack
quests
continued,
and stuff.
"I saw a deer and antelope, but I didn't have a gun. I ate dirty snow that was on the north side of the mountain."
Dirty snow.
Whoops. You see, Jack is clearly not like your modern Gen Alpha child. This is a rough, gruff 1950s country boy who wanted to turn his disappearance into a little hunting trip. I'm starting to
I
think
ate
he
some
just
snow.
breezed through the 50 miles after all. He slept under a tree, he wished he had a gun to hunt some game, and he ate mountain snow for water. The point here is, do you think this should be a Missing 411 case? The child told his story, and it didn't involve aliens or Bigfoot or any mystery at all, really. Jack himself never asserted he walked 50 miles. This is merely the story of a tough kid who got lost for 2 days. While we're on the subject, let's talk about another even more incredible distance story that for some reason didn't make the list in Devils in the Details, even though the distance traveled was stated to be 75 miles. Let's talk about the daughters of John Hammond. In May of 1891, the 4- and 8-year-old daughters of John Hammond left their home 6 miles north of the town of Thedford to go visit their sister who lived a mile away. They visited their sister and then began walking home. They never made it back. A large search was initiated to find the 2 girls. On the 4th day of searching, they found the youngest girl unconscious but still alive. She was found 15 miles from the point she disappeared. This was good, but they still had to find the other sister. She was found on the 10th day of the search, but unfortunately, she was already deceased. The Missing 411 book quotes an article that says the girl was found 10 miles north of Running, Blaine County, fully 75 miles from the place where the children lost their way. That is quite incredible if true. So let's have a look at the newspaper in question. Now, incidentally, that quote I just shared from Missing 411 actually has a typo, as the newspaper does not state the girl was found north of Running, but actually a town called Dunning. So we know where the girl left from and where she ended up. She started 6 miles north of Thedford and ended up 10 miles north of Dunning. Now, as the crow flies, that distance is about 25 miles. Obviously, she likely didn't walk a straight line, so the distance
My
is more.
mouse just switched
But the
games.
idea that this girl walked 75 miles is
but
completely
what?
unconfirmed and highly unlikely. Why couldn't she have walked 30 miles
Right,
across
Street
the 10
Fighter
days she was
or
missing? My main point
PS4.
here is that this 75 miles number is entirely fabricated and totally unreliable. It comes from one newspaper article that just got reprinted by all the other newspapers. This case could very well qualify as a Missing 411 case.
These are the
It has that
the
element of
auction
mystery
house
where
real
we don't
quick.
know why they disappeared, but the supposed eye-catching fact,
I can
this
figure out where the
75
fuck I am.
miles, is more than likely a typo or something. Reliability in newspapers from the 1800s has always been an issue. How would anyone know she walked 75 miles instead of 25? There was simply no way to confirm that unless they followed tracks for 75 miles, which I can guarantee did not happen. So those are 2 of the largest distances traveled by children in Missing 411 cases, and it is apparent to me after researching them that those distances were not verifiably traveled, and also highly unlikely in each situation. I don't want to beat a dead horse with this, but I feel like I have to throw an elevation one in here just to satisfy everyone, so let's do that. Going back to the Devils in the Details book on page 361, we have a list of children who covered great elevation. Obviously, let's go to the top of the list, which is Jill Hatch, who traveled up 35.
I never got the survival guide?
At 7 years old. Already, it sounds like a supernatural feat, so let's see what the story is. Jill Hatch. In 1957, Jill Hatch was 7 years old when she left her home with her parents to go on a camping trip in Camp Shydeck, California. Camp Shydeck is a small town that sits kind of near the base of Reyes Peak, which towers over the area at 7,500 feet in elevation. Camp Shydeck sits at about 3,800 feet in elevation. Keep those two numbers in mind here. Anyway, while on the trip, Jill went out with her father to do some fishing along with her dog. The dad spent some time fishing while Jill and the dog were just sitting nearby. When he was done, he went to grab Jill, only to find that both her and the dog were gone. A search was immediately started for Jill, but only the dog was found after it returned to camp on its own. Missing 411 states that 28 hours after Jill disappeared, searchers were near the summit of Reyes Peak and descending when they saw Jill on the side of a hill 7,500 feet up, which is essentially at the very top of Reyes Peak, and she was lying in fresh snow. Paulides states that Jill was found 5 miles from her camp and 3,500 feet up in elevation, a truly incredible distance. Unfortunately, Jill was already dead from exposure when they found her. She would have had to cross 2 steep ridges to reach this point. So what's the problem with this one, you might ask? Well, to start, I have no idea where Paulides got this story of searchers coming down from Reyes Peak and somehow finding Jill up there near the top. He cites no source. And just think about it. Why would searchers even be up there looking for a small child? Almost every article you find on Jill Hatch's case says that she was found between half a mile to a mile and a half from camp. I looked at a ton of articles on this case, and only one claimed she was found 5 miles away. But the problem with the 5 miles figure is that it doesn't make sense. 5 miles from Camp Shydeck puts you past Reyes Peak. But even if you accept this anomalous figure, the story told in this article is completely different from Missing 411. It says her body was found huddled in some bushes, not laying on the snow at the top of Reyes Peak. The most important newspaper I found on this case comes from the Ventura County Star, which actually shares details of those who found her. Russell Princeton, a butcher from New Cuyama, was one of the searchers covering a hillside above the creek, making his way over snow-covered rocks and brush when he came upon the little, limp body of the girl. She apparently had begun to make her way up the slope where she could see greater distance, when exhaustion overcame her and, sleepy from the bitter cold, slumped down in the snow and collapsed. Reading a little earlier in the article, we learned that this searcher was in Snail Canyon when he found Jill Hatch. So he was covering the hillside above the creek in Snail Canyon, not climbing to the top of Reyes Peak. Let's look at where Snail Canyon is in relation to Camp Shydeck. The highlighted area is Snail Canyon, and it does not extend southward more than about 2.5 miles from Camp Shydeck. But keep in mind that Jill was found about half a mile to a mile and a half from the camp, so she wasn't very deep into the canyon, which coincidentally agrees with what 99% of newspapers say about where Jill was found. It also means Jill could not have climbed higher than the canyon walls, let's say 1,000 feet. But judging by the article of the fellow who found her, she died very shortly after even attempting to climb up the sides of the canyon. So the total elevation Jill climbed is likely next to nothing, and certainly not even close to 3,500 feet. In my opinion, the story as told in Missing 411
Notice they had some of them in the auction house.
numbers and also does
Some
not
of the
cite a source
attachments
for
I
Jill
need.
being found at the top of Reyes Peak. The only newspaper report that even remotely sounded like what's written in Missing 411 describes 2 male searchers who were coming down a slope when they spotted Jill lying on the snow. One of them also had the last name Princeton, and I bet he's the son of the man who gave a much better description of the discovery. Neither iterations describe the searchers being atop Reyes Peak. It simply doesn't make sense, and Jill Hatch's case represents absolutely nothing in terms of elevation climbed by a child. Let's talk about Dennis Martin. I know fans of the channel probably don't need a Dennis Martin refresher. I have a lot of videos on the subject, but it is a hugely important case because the Missing 411 version of this story has been told 1,000 times on various radio programs and other venues. And I would venture a guess that the majority of people familiar with the case only know the Missing 411 version. But I'll keep it brief. Dennis Martin disappeared in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in June of 1969. He was visiting the park with his grandfather, father, and brother for a family reunion of sorts. The plan was to meet up at a place called Spence Field. Along the way, the Martins encountered an unrelated family with the same last name. They got along well, and the two groups decided to make the trek together. After arriving at Spence Field, Dennis disappeared after the group of kids hatched a plot to scare some of the adults by jumping out from behind trees. Unfortunately, Dennis was wearing a bright red shirt, so they told him to go a different direction than everyone else. He was never seen again. According to Missing 411, hours after Dennis disappeared, a man named Harold Key was in the park with his family in the Rowans Creek area. They wandered into the woods looking for bears. While out there, they saw a large, hairy man, or a man wearing animal pelts,
Yes.
running through the forest carrying something on its shoulder. This description seems to be inferring a Bigfoot or a wild man abducted Dennis Martin. Missing 411 claims Special Forces Green Berets showed up out of nowhere during the search for Dennis. It is said they carried weapons while they searched and did not communicate with any other searchers. Much of this information comes from an interview that Politis and Bigfoot researcher Scott Carpenter did with Dennis Martin's father, Bill Martin. Politis never interviewed the most important witness in this case, however, which was Harold Key, because he says he was already dead back in 2010 and 2011 when he was researching for his book. The exact quote is, "Most of the people involved in this case have retired or passed away. Mr. Key died in 2010. The problem with that story is that it is only accurate up until Dennis Martin disappears. Harold Key was actually alive up until 2019, and fortunately he was interviewed by a police officer named Michael Bouchard before that time. Harold Key stated that the man he saw in the woods that day was carrying nothing. There was no child being carried on anyone's shoulder, nor was the man he saw a Bigfoot or a wild man in animal skins. He said he saw a disheveled-looking man moving through the forest and then getting into a white vehicle and driving out of the area with haste. Shortly thereafter, he said he heard someone scream the word help, and then heard an agonizing scream of pain. This version of the story can actually be verified by contemporary newspaper articles where Harold Key was interviewed and said the man he saw left in a white car. Bigfoots and wild men generally don't drive, as I understand it. Besides that, we know that the Green Berets arrived at the request of the Park Service because they were training in the nearby area of Nantahala, and they received permission to help. This record has existed and been available for a long time. As of 2024, there are also many photographs that show the Green Berets during the Dennis Martin search, and not a single one is shown carrying a weapon. If you want more detail than this, I suggest you check out my past videos on the Dennis Martin case. Essentially, everything about the case that appeared strange and unusual turned out to be incorrect. To sum up, this disappearance was considered a keystone case in the Missing 411 catalog. But in the end, when you look at all of the facts, it appears that Dennis was either kidnapped by the disheveled man, which would mean criminal activity and disqualify this case, or Dennis got lost and died from exposure. None of those options make the case worthy of a moniker such as unexplainable or paranormal. Let's move on to something else. I know many people are probably familiar with Missing 411 because they watched the movies. Perhaps you're wondering what, if anything, is wrong with those. I don't want to go over every case in each movie because that would take some time, but let's just say that the movies aren't exempt from this problem. Don't get me wrong, I think Missing 411 The Hunted is a beautifully made movie. I've watched it many times. It's very well made from an artistic standpoint, but in terms of telling accurate stories, I think it can be seriously lacking in some areas. I'll briefly touch on some things from each movie. For the first Missing 411 movie, I remember watching it right when it came out, and even then I felt like it didn't really capture the essence of what Missing 411 was. I think the only truly mysterious case presented in it was that of Jared Adedero. The main focus was on Dior Coons Jr., in a case that I feel has a lot of indications of foul play. It's still being investigated to this day. Another case brought up in the movie was that of Bobby Biza, a boy who disappeared while attending a Catholic camp and whose partial remains were later found. There is strong evidence to indicate that Bobby was the victim of some very evil camp counselors. The case is still being investigated to this day, and media has provided updates in the case as recently as 2022. This case should not have been included due to criminal activity. With regard to Missing 411 The Hunted, there's really two cases that I want to point out to this movie. Stanley Vihill Jr. is
How are
the first.
you, nerd?
If you watch the movie, it tells Stanley's story something like this. In 2017,
okay.
he was out on a hunting trip with his father and friends when he spotted a
just
deer as they were driving around in the truck. Stanley jumps out of the truck, chasing the deer.
watching
Bad weather rolls in, and
True
Stanley never returns.
crime.
A search is
slop.
initiated, but it is unsuccessful. Then Stanley is eventually found dead in the Pecos
Maybe not
River
slop.
months later.
It's actually
This
a
is
good
all
channel.
suggesting that we have no idea what could have possibly happened to
But
Stanley.
I'm fine, thank you.
It makes it sound
Thank
like
you for
Stanley
calling.
ran
I
out
hope
of the
you're
car
doing
and
fine
vanished
as
into the woods
well.
before showing up dead. That would be pretty
I will go
mysterious,
AFK for a
but
second.
this is
in
only
a
a
minute.
fraction of Stanley's story. Before
I want
disappearing,
to switch
Stanley
games.
was in the truck drinking with
I
the
just
other men.
wanted to
Maybe a minor detail, but
do
still
some
potentially
quests.
important.
Quests,
The day
yeah.
after
Start up
Stanley
some
went
stuff
missing,
and
he actually
buy
showed
some
up at the
items for
doorstep
my
of a woman
automation.
named Eumelia Gonzalez.
My puppets.
Eumelia found him knocking
Get
on her
ready
door
for this,
late at night, and she had no idea who he
VCNM
was.
that I
She
need
said
to.
that he was armed with a 9mm
Because there's this
pistol
item I
in his
really
hand,
want.
and he
It's
told
called
a
a
story
Kraken
about his
Club,
truck being stuck in
and it's
the
a really
mountains
good
and
item,
men were
but
chasing after
it's
him.
a very rare
Stanley asked
drop.
to use her phone, but because Eumelia was scared, she told him he could not, and she then told him to leave, which he did.
And the
Later
fight
on,
that I
Eumelia
have to
would
do,
make
I
contact with
cannot
authorities
fail.
where she identified
So
Stanley Vihill as
I'm
the man who
over-preparing,
knocked on her door.
but
Canines were brought to
I'd
her
rather
house where they
win
were able to pick up his
consistently
scent and track it for a while.
because there's no guarantee
Stanley
that
was
I'm going to
also
get the
likely
drop. The
captured
drop's
by a
really
number of
rare.
game cameras after this incident,
For this
giving us some
battle.
idea of his path of travel. Stanley's sister, Darcy
I'll probably try to
Vihill,
do it
also
tomorrow
believed that
or the
men were
next
chasing
day.
her brother, and stated that police told her that his body had been found with head
What
trauma
am I
and
doing?
broken ribs. Darcy Vihill
What?
provided police with other testimony that she had seen surveillance tape of men appearing to chase
Oh.
someone who appears to be Stanley, hiding near a gas station. As far as I know, police never confirmed this report, so I don't give it the same weight as other evidence. I corresponded with Darcy back in
Celebrate.
2023, and she still believes foul play was involved in Stanley's death, and she wants further investigation. But here's the point I want to make. If you had to guess what was going on in this case, what would it be? For me, I'd say either foul play or mental illness.
Bullshit.
Well, let's examine the Missing 411 exclusionary criteria shown in this very movie. Again, the likely explanation falls within two exclusionary categories. It seems like this should not be considered a Missing 411 case, but it's still in the movie. Alright, let's talk about Aaron Hedges briefly. I made a detailed video on the topic already, but if you're unfamiliar with the flaws in this case, I would suggest you go view it on my channel. Here is an abridged version as told in the movie. Aaron Hedges went hunting in the crazy
I just spent $100K for like almost each of these items, and I can sell them back to the NPC for
Aaron had hidden a cache of gear at a place called Sunlight Lake, so he told his friends that he was going to leave and go get it. Aaron left, but stayed in radio contact with his friends for some time. In the last contact they had with him, he told them that he believed he had missed a turn and would not be back soon. Aaron's friends eventually shot an elk and then left the area without him. They told authorities that when they returned to the trailhead, they received a delayed text from Aaron saying that he would call them that night. A brutal snowstorm hits the area, and the search for Aaron eventually begins. They find a place he appeared to have stayed with a fire pit, some gear, and his hiking boots. They don't find Aaron. His backpack and bow were later found located on the Rhine Ranch, further down the trail from where his campfire was found. It was resting against a tree, purposefully placed. Aaron's remains would be found a year later by guests from the Sweetgrass Ranch. There was not enough left of him to determine the cause of death. The sad truth of this story is that Aaron was quite an alcoholic. He had a serious problem. He was taking medication to help curb his drinking, but it appears it wasn't working very well. Witness testimony indicates that he went out on this hunting trip with a crazy plan to try and detox.
I've got a lot of
Complications from alcohol withdrawal and a sudden snowstorm are what likely led to his death. There was also this other element of Aaron's hiking boots being found at the small campsite he made. I talked to this guy, who you might recognize from the movie itself. This is Sweetgrass County Sheriff Ronneberg. He told me that it's common for hunters to carry a spare set of hunting moccasins with them for stalking game. Sheriff Ronneberg said that he believed Aaron was wearing these moccasins instead. If you really look at all of the details of this case, nothing seems unexplainable about it. It's really just a tragic story. After my video on the subject was released, I've heard people say that perhaps Politis knew about the alcoholism, but decided not to say anything out of respect for Aaron and his family. That idea would be all well and good, but then you should not include it as a main entry in your movie. You can't omit a key element in explaining the case and then say the case is unexplainable. Sheriff Ronneberg said that he did an hour-long interview for the movie, which got whittled down to just a few minutes, which is normal, but I have a hard time believing that Ronneberg didn't bring up any of his key points at the time. In my opinion, Aaron's disappearance has clear signs of both voluntary disappearance because he wanted to detox alone, and also mental illness in the form of addiction. It's pretty plain that both Stanley Vihill and Aaron Hedges should have been excluded from Missing 411 based on its own criteria. The key details of both.
My husband always watches these little TikTok cat videos with all the banana cat, happy cat, Maxwell, that one cat that does the. He's always watching them. There's so many of these little TikTok the cat videos, and it's cute. But oh my god, and I'm always hearing him in the other room. I can hear, because all the cats do all their little meme sounds. Ha ha! Happy, happy, happy. Anyway, I am going to switch to my PS4. And be right back. What am I doing? Oh, I'm switching to my PS4. What? I'll be RB.
White Ranger, activate Saga, the talking saber, and follow his instructions.
Tigerborn power, now!
Now you're ready to fight. And sound the call to battle. And now, really grab the power. The Power Cannon. Its 5 Powerball ammunition load is harmless to humans, but not to evil space aliens. Add even more power with the Power Gun Sword. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from Bandai. Grab the power.
And Mr. Freeze aims to chill Batman next, but not Anti-Freeze Batman. Mr. Freeze and his Ice Zapper are out of control, but Batman's ready.
Freeze, Batman! Take this, hot shot! Ah!
Only Batman's Ice Hammer vehicle is tough enough to drill through this ice storm.
Chill out, Mr. Freeze!
Now the best is hotter than ever. Batman! Vehicle and figures each sold separately.
The hearts of men, the Shadow knows. The evil Khan calls on his fiendish friend Dr. Makino. But Ninja Shadow with blazing eyes has the power to stop them. Makino and Khan take off. Ninja Shadow chases them in his Mirage, each sold separately. Will they get away? Who knows? The Shadow knows. Now you can get a free Shadow Agent's ring.
It changes!
Just like in the movie. Send in 2 proofs of purchase from any Shadow toys for your free Shadow hologram ring.
Wow!
The Shadow knows.
Now you can be as clever as Kevin with Tiger's new TalkBoy tape recorder.
Stop drooling on me! Stop drooling on me!
It even has speed control.
Hi, kids. We're home early.
Hi, kids. We're home early.
Tiger's new Talkboy tape recorder comes with audio cassette. Now, have more Home Alone fun with Tiger's new Home Alone 2 handheld game.
Savage Hunter, Aliens vs. Predator, with awesome new Predators. Clan Leader attacks with whipping dreadlocks. And Stalker, glowing in the dark, fires his spear. Suddenly, flipping up his attack spikes, the wild boar alien charges. And the ferocious mother alien in her monstrous hide traps Spiketail, then covers him in ooze.
Ooze 'em!
Who will survive? Aliens vs. Predator. Queen High playset comes with mother alien figure and ooze. Other figures sold separately.
It's a countdown to the ultimate showdown, and Guile is going wild, diving into adventure, stalking the shadows, blasting like a blizzard, his punching sonic boom.
Smells M. Bison's doom!
Now comes Street Fighter, figure sold separately.
Extreme Hero G.I. Joe! It's the all-new G.I. Joe Extreme. Bigger, bolder, and battle-ready. Lieutenant Stone leads the all-new Joes with Ultra Slam firepower against the evil Iron Claw and his Scar forces. Scar's Bone Splitter tank is brutal, but the 2-in-1 Sand Striker strikes back with long-distance Scar resistance. Extreme times call for extreme heroes. It's the all-new G.I. Joe Extreme. Figures and vehicles each sold separately.
Oh, but we're gonna stop them anyway! Send in the Marines! We're the Space Marines. Drake, Ripley, 8-Bone, Bishop, and I'm Hicks, armed with the latest high-tech heavy metal.
Look out, Hicks! The Queen's gonna crown ya! My bug walker's on a roll! Bull alien attacking! Eat torch, bug brain!
Alien invasion problem? Send in the Marines!
Aliens! Send in the Marines!
Space Marines, aliens!
Cool! It makes sound!
Is that so?
Skeleton!
The Power Sword makes 8 action sounds. It lights up with power. You can be a hero with the He-Man Power Sword. Send for a He-Man video for 99 cents and postage with specially marked vehicle.
Up to the challenge of Cube It Up, the amazing motorized cube that spins by itself. It's got a motor inside. How do you play? Good question. Cube It Up calls out a color, which you have to keep on top to rack up points. Yes. Sounds easy? Well, Hotshot, it's not. Because the cube's always turning. You can play by yourself or with friends, if you've got any. Rack up the most points, and you're a Cube It Up master. Awesome. Very good, Cube Boy. Ready for level 2? Level 2? Cube It Up. The challenge is in the cube. Each sold separately. Batteries not included.
City after city, Godzilla's destroying everything!
General, who's gonna save us from... Excuse me. Hello? Godzilla!
The Godzilla Force and Mecha-Godzilla.
The Godzilla Force is here. The supersonic Garuda warship fires laser missiles and a retrievable grappling hook. Can the giant Mecha-Godzilla stop Godzilla, king of the monsters?
The battle begins!
All figures sold separately, batteries not included from Trendmasters.
Hey, dudes, bedtime?
Do you A, obey the babysitter, B, beg to stay up, C, hit her with thermonuclear breath?
It's Godzilla, king of the monsters. His eyes flash as he roars. His arms swing, feet stomp, tail whips. Godzilla rules. Collect Godzilla and all his friends of destruction, then fight the ultimate battle where no one is safe.
Cool hair!
Batteries not included. From Trendmasters, yes.
Fighters came, bashing and banging till only Rue and Guile remain in the Street Fighter 2 tabletop game. Build your punching power before your energy runs out. Are you ready for Hurricane X? Can you come back from Sonic Boom? Street Fighter 2 electronic tabletop game.
Next.
It's time to get real.
It's showtime. Hey, annoying hombres making you do stuff you hate. Don't lose your head. Make them history. Think that's scary? Watch this. Whoa! That went right through me.
Did you see that?
Now watch this. First, a double team. Now, a double scare. Nobody beats me. So when you want to scare somebody, give me a call.
Beetlejuice! 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 Gotta go.
Terminator with the Bio-Flesh Regenerator.
I'm back. Yeah? Think again. Battle damage.
Add flesh compound.
Terminator created.
Terminator.
I'm back. Got my looks, my laugh, my voice, and all. Can I do that? So if you can't have me, get the next best thing. Talking Urkel. Just pull my string. The one and only Talking Urkel doll.
Favorite pet?
Yes.
So what's that make me? Fish sticks?
Oh, are you hungry?
Oh, no. By all means, feed it. Play till your heart's content.
Look, Goldie. I took good care of her, and she changed again.
Change? How about changing some water here?
Katie, Buzz is here.
So Tamagotchi can pause. I can pause too. Want to see that again?
Hatch a Tamagotchi, the one and only from Bandai, each sold separately.
Welcome to Skull Dungeon.
Wow.
Mighty Max.
Smasher, get up. Your brain donor is here. Me want brain. No way, slime face. Whoa! Watch out for that first step. It's not over, Mighty Max.
Will Max get fried? His fate is in your hands. Mighty Max, Mighty Max. You can collect all his adventure sets, each sold separately. Mighty Max figure included from Mattel.
Is Phantasm. But first, the Joker must be stopped. Only Total Armor Batman can prepare to do battle with Jetpack Joker.
Time for a little pick-me-up.
This clown's in for a total surprise. That nightmare is over, but Phantasm remains. So Batman powers up with the electronic crime stalker vehicle.
Sounds cool.
It's a fight to the finish, but Phantasm's no match for the power of Batman. Vehicle and figures each sold separately.
Graveyard Ghoulies. Squeeze the colored goop into the mold, or use glow goop, and out pop body parts. Stomach, heart, brain. It's Graveyard Ghoulies.
Graveyard ghoulies are a creepy crawler fright, so beware of what happens at night.
Creepy Crawlers Workshop. Your parents put it together. Light bulb not included. Graveyard Ghoulies, mold pack, and glow goop each sold.
Team yet, Capcom Street Fighter 2!
No way!
Wait! There's Guile, Ryu, Zangief, Blanca, and Dalsim!
What's a Dawson? Oh!
Some with real ninja moves!
Hey!
But Troopers get Street Fighters too!
Vega, Sagat, Balrog!
And me, El Bison!
They look unbeatable! God!
You know them, you love them!
So correcto!
Capcom Street Fighter 2 figures each sold separately.
Oh, I like them!
Repulsive. Hideous. Disgusting. Obnoxious. Revolting. Wretched. Sickening. Blurp balls. They make you want to blurp.
White Ranger, activate Saga the Talking Saber and follow his instructions.
Tiger Tower, now!
Now you're ready to fight. And sound the call to battle. And now, really grab the power. The Power Cannon. Its 5 Powerball ammunition load is harmless to humans, but not to evil space aliens. Add even more power with the Power Gun Sword. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from Bandai. Grab the power.
And Mr. Freeze aims to chill Batman next, but not anti-freeze Batman. Mr. Freeze and his Ice Zapper are out of control, but Batman's ready.
Freeze, Batman!
Take this, hot shot.
Ah!
Only Batman's Ice Hammer vehicle is tough enough to drill through this ice storm.
Chill out, Mr. Freeze.
Now the best is hotter than ever. Batman. Vehicle and figures each sold separately.
In the hearts of men, the Shadow knows. The evil Khan calls on his fiendish friend Dr. Makino. But Ninja Shadow with blazing eyes has the power to stop them. Makino and Khan take off. Ninja Shadow chases them in his Mirage, each sold separately. Will they get away? Who knows? The Shadow knows. Now you can get a free Shadow Agent's ring.
It changes.
Just like in the movie. Send in 2 proofs of purchase from any Shadow toys for your free Shadow hologram ring.
Wow.
The Shadow knows.
Now you can be as clever as Kevin with Tiger's new Talkboy tape recorder.
Stop drooling on me. Stop drooling on me.
It even has speed control.
Hi, kids. We're home early.
Hi, kids. We're home early.
Tiger's new Talk Boy tape recorder comes with audio cassette. Now, have more Home Alone fun with Tiger's new Home Alone 2 handheld game.
Savage Hunter, Aliens vs. Predator, with awesome new Predators. Clan Leader attacks with whipping dreadlocks. And Stalker, glowing in the dark, fires his spear. Suddenly, flipping up his attack spikes the wild boar alien charges. And the ferocious mother alien in her monstrous hive traps Spiketail, then covers him in ooze.
Ooze 'em!
Who will survive? Aliens vs. Predator. Queen High playset comes with mother alien figure and ooze. Other figures sold separately.
It's a countdown to the ultimate showdown, and Guile is going wild, diving into adventure, stalking the shadows, blasting like a blizzard, his punching sonic boom.
Spells and Bison's doom!
Now comes Street Fighter, figure sold separately.
Extreme Hero G.I. Joe! It's the all-new G.I. Joe Extreme. Bigger, bolder, and battle-ready. Lieutenant Stone leads the all-new Joes with Ultra Slam firepower against the evil Iron Claw and his Scar forces. Scar's Bone Splitter tank is brutal, but the 2-in-1 Sand Striker strikes back with long-distance Scar resistance. Extreme times call for extreme heroes. It's the all-new G.I. Joe Extreme. Figures and vehicles each sold separately.
But we're gonna stop them anyway! Send in the Marines! We're the Space Marines. Drake, Ripley, A-Bone, Bishop, and I'm Hicks, armed with the latest high-tech heavy metal.
Look out, Hicks! The Queen's gonna crown ya! My bug walker's on a roll! Bull alien attacking! Eat torch, bug brain!
Ah. Okay. I'm back. I gotta be close to this damn trophy. I love them too.
KOF 15. DJ Station. Looking for a trip down memory lane? SNK DJ Station delivers all the best tunes straight from Osaka.
You sit missing videos. Oh shit.
You're the mine. You.
I was just being the silly
Okay,
goat,
here we go.
like usual.
Hello?
That's when I see evil, freaky Billy walk in.
Who wants to get evil and freaky with me?
Gets the hell out of here, Freaky Billy.
I want a Freaky Billy. And I have 5 bands. Sure. What? What? Wait. What was the magnifying glass?
Cow!
The first video's not playing. It's just frozen on the kittens. But the other two work. They're really funny. But this minute and 12 one, it's not playing. Or it's just frozen on one screen. Thank you for that. The other two videos played. I don't know why that's. Yeah, which
Select members. A battle unlike any other in history.
what was that? What was it, silly again?
I was just being the silly Billy, like usual.
Hello?
That's when I see evil, freaky Billy walk in.
Who wants to get evil and freaky with me?
Gets the hell out of here, Freaky Billy.
Freaky Billy. Ah!
Select order.
I'll try to speedrun this a bit. Because I only have like a couple teams to do. I probably won't get the trophy, but I'll definitely get it done.
And we're off. Which team will bring the heat?
Taste the meat, not the heat. This is why I like having on my own music, because I don't... This fucking time between matches where there's just silent and shit. Because it takes it forever to load.
CEO of Howard Connection and Emperor of Southtown. He's a martial arts nightmare. Geese Howard. You cannot escape from this.
What?
Round
That's the
one.
line.
Ready? Go!
Requel? Squeakquel!
An exciting bout from round one.
I watch the Alvin and the Chipmunks films every day. Shut your face, Yamazaki.
Now or never. Ready?
It's got for you.
Player one wins 2 rounds in a row.
Fuck you. Billy Khan. All these Billies. Freaky Billy, Silly Billy, Billy Khan. Ooh, Mary's fun.
This competitor is too strong. Can anyone stop him? Winner!
I've grasped your bojutsu inside and out. You won't catch me with the odd strike. What? The fuck are you talking about?
Select order. Galaxy! Your next challenger is Team GAW.
Too quiet.
The first king, round one. Ready, go!
Damn. Oh, she has a charge? Oh, that's that slicer move. I've been thinking it was something else. What?
Reach for the top. Ready, go!
Jesus. King of dinosaurs. Get off me. He's just all about doing that.
Round 4. Ready, go!
Got on. I don't like how they made Vanessa more attractive. She looks cuter. When before I thought she looked fine.
The goddess of victory smiles upon the winner. Winner! Select order.
いきまーす。
Your next challenger is Team KOF.
Oh, I need the PC version or a PS5.
Is he finally round one? Ready? Go!
Ow. Damn it, dude. Bingo, you're fucking crazy.
KO! Player 2 takes an early lead. Round 2. Ready? Go! And we're tied up. Round 3. Ready? Go!
Damn.
KO! Player 1 needs a miracle.
Ah!
Stand your ground. Ready? Go!
Is he taller than Yoooo Yori? It's crazy sweet.
Go big or go home!
Hey, Amaru?
Final round. Ready? Go!
Damn, dude. Oh, that was close. Boobs. It's a, quite an angle. I wish they'd get shots like that on dudes. Be fucking Ralph's bulge. Or King of Dinosaurs. Fucking gooch.
Your next challenger is Team Ikari.
Just for how sexy they want to show off, like, the women. They should be just as, like, slutty with the men. I'm just saying.
He survived. Round 1. Ready? Go!
I thought that was Ralph. I was like, wait, what the fuck? I'm talking about his fucking bulge and shit. Which isn't very noticeable. But they'll show off big booties all day. Equal.
And player 1 clinches the first
Ew.
round. Mission start. Stand your ground. Ready? Go!
Oops. I forgot how to throw.
Player 1 takes another round. Now or never. Ready? Go!
Busy.
KO! Showing their resilience here. Round 4. Ready? Go!
Goddamn. Ah.
This is just the start of a new worldwide legend. Winner! Select order.
Semifinals.
clinch their spot in the finals.
Damn, it's already 7.
Have round 1. Ready? Go! An exciting bout from round 1.
Mature.
Round 2. Ready? Go!
Dude.
And we're
Aye.
Round 3. Ready? Go!
Why?
No mercy.
Sure, what is your deal? Shit.
Nice cut. KO! Only their anchor remains. Stand your ground. Ready? Go! Can they survive? May the best anchor win. Final round. Ready? Go!
Shit, got me that time. I thought I was gonna be able to hold it out. Yo, get off me. Dude, this CPU. Crack.
What a stellar fight!
Let us beat this game.
Select order.
最高傑作見せてやんや。
We're in the final act now! Who is going to claim victory?
Dolores!
Her dreams are painted all over the streets. Every battle to her is a canvas for her art. Isla and Amanda.
染めてやるぜ私の色に。
Round one. Ready? Go! Player 2 won't give up that easy.
See you.
Oh, another deep cover operation. Must be some mission for you to appear on the front lines. As an agent, my interest is suddenly piqued. I recall telling you to keep your nose out of the affairs. Yep. Bah. Return to your mission. Bitch ass.
Burn to fight. Ready? Go!
What?
Not looking good for player 2.
Follow me.
To the top. Ready? Go!
Get him.
They absolutely thrashed their opponent in that match. Winner!
Can't help but wonder why you bother to challenge me with that level of skill. Bitch. And you have it. It's like reverse.
Some kind of monster monster is attacking us! It's like verse!
Are you ready?
Round one. Ready? Go! That was a nail-biter! Keep an eye on this matchup! Winner!
Strange creature B, whatever's happening here, it comes ominous.
嫌な予感がするわね。
Last fight! I'll probably log after this.
Select order.
I didn't realize daylight savings time was last time. Also,
The goddess of truth,
I woke up way
Uttara
later than I
stands in
thought.
the way.
Or I wanted to, too. It was like 4. I was gonna wake up at like 2.
Are you ready?
Round one. Ready? Go!
I wasn't up.
Won't give up that easy. Round two. Ready? Go!
It's right in the bad. Ow. Yo, that was like, oh my god.
Player two takes another round. Final round.
My butt. What? Did it? All that health? Shit. I don't got back. Bug back.
That was a nail biter. Keep an eye on this matchup.
I would love to tour with you more, but that's all the time I have. It's been lovely, Madame Monster. Yo, I did it. Let's get the woman in here. Shut your Automarama looking at. Teen Secret Agent. Automoraga. God of creation of before Africa's interlinked, or so they say. There is a mother of life, a being central to the out of Africa theory of migration. And it is perhaps feasible there's being on a higher plane whose existence across space and time like Dolores. I get what you're talking about, but it seems pretty unlikely, kind of cultish. I mean, that guy's kind of a jerk for God of creation. Oh my, you two. Is this conversation not sitting? What? I prefer things with the air of mystery. People are naturally drawn to the unknown, right? Oh, come on, Wall. So, Vanessa, are you done keeping an eye on Isla? I suppose I've collected enough data. In spite of the trouble during pregnant, we were able to make contact. You know, she's not exactly a proper child, is she? True, at least nothing compared to you or you know me. Let's not bring him up again. Oh, Wong. Aren't you dying to show us what you swiped earlier? Heck, did you catch me in the act? Pretty naive of you to assume otherwise. If you plan on heading whatever it is over to Geese, then I'll have you confiscated. Have to confiscate. No need to get your tassels in a twist. Very well then, if I must. They're a team after all. Doesn't that belong to Dolores? Did you snatch it off her during that ruckus? Time for me to confess, I was aiming for this from the start. It's an amulet belonging to a great hermit of Africa. The Sage's Eye. Secret texts of the Qin dynasty pointed to the existence of this treasure Hein wants to at all costs. To take down Geese. Hein defeat Geese? Now hold on 1 minute, what's your game? You won't hear another word on the subject from these lips. Now on to the main course. Mary, here's the confidential intel you wanted about powered connection. I included all the juicy details of my secret little plan. Partner says, between us girls, of course. Hey, hold on. So long, ladies. Nice teaming up with you. Let's play again sometime. And shoot, she got away. Besides, she really got one over on us. What's the verdict, Mary? I hope she remains oblivious to the fact it's a fake. Right, I'm sure she's noticed the GPS tracker too. Man, she terrifies me. I really feel for that stuff before eyes. Quite, I'm just happy we're not her targets. Right, enough work. I say we celebrate our victory with a drink. It's a pretty long cutscene. Good idea, let's go. Or ending. Assortment of visuals. I'm right there.
海外出張の特典といえば地元でのショッピングよね。というわけでレッツ観光。あ、見て、このランプ綺麗じゃない？
Live to fight another day.
Select members. Whoa, check it out! A new challenger is ready to brawl!
I'm about to log off.
Registration. Select members. Put all your skills to the test and show us a battle worthy of legends.
I want to make it too. I want to play it later. How do I get in there?
Let's roll!
This man. Maybe that.
敵は全て絶滅させてやる。
障害を排除。
Going all out!
太古のパワーを見せてやろう。
最高傑作見せてやんや。
最高のパフォーマンス。はい、wait! Select order. 俺のルカに惚れんなよ。
I don't think that's true.
Select stage.
If I got budget.
Get ready for a battle of titans!
I'm about to get going. I just beat the game a second ago. I still have like 2 teams till I get my trophy. But it's all good. I just wanted to look at Hydrant's moves for 1 second.
Round 1. Ready, go! An exciting bout from round 1. Reach for the top. Ready, go! Stormbringer! Stinger!
takes another round. Round 3. Ready, go!
Oh, he's so he can't help me. I gotta remember that.
If you want to know how to win, this is the person to ask.
I'm glad they gave him.
Winner!
They gave him. They took out his full screen fucking.
それで私に勝てる道理もあるまい。
But they gave him some new cool shit. Too proud, you're awesome. Peace out. Later. I'll be back later tomorrow. La, 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 la. You're awesome. Love you all. Love you, love you, love you. Twitch, YouTube. Bye, 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 bye. Have a good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. Ah!